Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, and welcome back everybody to Final Fantasy V, the solo character challenge number 19, with the Beastmaster. Now, as usual, I'm just gonna start a new game, and I will have a few things to mention and explain for anybody who may have watched the previous solo character challenges, so it will kind of make sense. So, first of all, we are still, again, on console, so I will just kind of go through the intro until it is there, reset the console and start load the save that we unlocked all the chops in, so we can start with the Beastmaster as early as possible. Well, as early as reasonably possible. Further, we already decided on certain sites and things such as which character we are going to be using during this playthrough. It's going to be Ferris. We have decided on the name as well as the window border layout color, if you will. And yeah. So, for anybody who may have watched previous solo character challenge runs, as a heads up, this is now 1080p that I stream at rather than 720, and consequently the layout looks a little bit different. I had to adjust a few things. For example, if I switch over to the planning phase, where I'm going to explain some plans and things that I'm going to be doing, it will look a little bit smaller, but it should still have the same amount of detail. Unfortunately, my monitor on the right side is literally not large enough to make this any taller here. Like, this is the limit on how tall I can actually see this screen here, so we'll just kind of have to live with it. And it should be sufficient for the most part, I think. Either way, as a quick overview, we have completed 17 and a half solo character challenge runs. Technically the Berserker is not done yet, but that's not exactly a reasonable proposition without figuring out how to do some RNG manipulation or something of that kind. Either way, we're going to be playing the solo Beastmaster here, which is going to be Ferris, with the Butt's name being Butt and purple is going to be the window color. The link for the straw poll is going to be in chat, so you can already vote for the next set of characters, which we only have a few left. Notably, what I actually omitted from the straw poll are the freelancer, because I want to do the mime first, because the mime is going to be effectively a weaker freelancer for the most part. So I want to do that before I do the freelancer. And also, I did not include the Necromancer 2.0 in this straw poll. I may add it back in future ones, but I would like for now to focus on completing these ones here. So that's that for now. What else? For the Beastmaster, there's actually going to be a lot of things to consider and quite a bit of planning ahead for this game. So we have various status effects that we have access to. I actually just marked all of them because the way Beastmaster works is you can capture enemies and then release them once in one battle, and they will have certain effects and status effects that we can take advantage of. And there is just going to be certain, a lot of different enemies that we can catch and status effects that we have access to. I have taken the list that was created originally by Dragondark, and I kind of sectioned it a little bit more to my usability. I added customized colors for the various status effects available. Also, I sectioned off the enemies available based on which section of the game we are at. So before Carl Boss, this is the amount of enemies we have access to. After Carl Boss, we have only these ones, etc. So that is going to be that kind of thing. So, as a consequence, here we are. Welcome to Final Fantasy V. And welcome everybody, hope you're doing well. Did I forget to ice that? Hang on, test. Oh, I see. It's already just kind of been erased after a while. I guess I did set it to a few minutes. Let me actually check how long the chat stays up real quick. The messages anyways. They stay up for 2 minutes. Well, I guess that's fine. I'm just a bit slow at introduction and reading chat, I suppose. So yeah, welcome everybody. So, kind of as mentioned before, I'm going to reset here and just load the save file with the prepared, already all characters unlocked character here. We are in the exact same position, and the only difference is now we can select the Beastmaster from the get-go already, which is going to be what we will want to do in order to make this as complete of a challenge as reasonably doable. So, yeah, it's a disappearing chat. Also, I guess I didn't change the font this time around. Oh well, I hope it's reasonably readable. So, alrighty. We start off here, kind of... Oh, I forgot to set the options. Oh well, we'll set to do this afterwards. We do this pretty much as you would expect as usual. We just hold down the A button in order to defeat the enemies as quick as possible. You have to defeat these enemies and there's not really much of a way around it. And then, well, we just get going. So, once we get the Beastmaster, I will start explaining as to what we are getting into, but one more thing I actually forgot to mention before I start. So, since last time I played this game, also this is our chosen name by the raffle winner last time. Since last time, it's been, well, about 10 months, almost 11, so quite a long time since I played Final Fantasy V. I'm going to probably be a bit rusty and a bit slower than usual to pick up on certain things as well as figure out what I need to do for which sections of the game, and also kind of planning ahead is going to be kind of a big deal for the solo Beastmaster here. And, well, I think once we get really started on the Beastmaster, that will become rather apparent. As usual, we set the battle speed to slow, because that mainly affects how quick the enemies are. So this is, instead of battle speed, this is more of a difficulty slider for anybody who may not know. The battle speed literally only affects enemies, and how quick they act after you get a turn, and how long you get to wait until, or how long you have your commands to input before the enemies get to act. 6 is super slow, and if I wanted to wait on an enemy actually acting and do something afterwards, well, 5 is just more convenient, which I'm not going to lose any like in-game time in comparison. Message speed we set to very fast, because otherwise it's going to be way too long of a, well, game, so to speak. Window command settings we set to short, that way I can press up for attack, left for ability number 1, right for ability number 2, and down for item usage in combat. And instead of having a list, like just kind of the list above each other's. And we set the cursor to memory cursor, that way the game will remember what the last command is I inputted, rather than starting me on fight every single time, as well as the memory cursor for the regular menu. Further, we're gonna set this to purple, because that is what the raffle winner last time chose. And yeah, and we get started here. Welcome to O'Flurry. Gundalf Lundgren, welcome to you as well. Welcome to you as well, PMA and Eagle Falcon. Welcome to you, Alenwa. Oh no, Beastmaster is finally happening. I think Beastmaster is a very interesting class. In fact, Beastmaster is going to have one of the easier times for a lot of encounters, but it might be just kind of a bit of a special case in a lot of cases. Alrighty, we're just going to move through the early stages of the game, but maybe a quick introduction to anybody who might not be as familiar with Final Fantasy V, just kind of as a general overview. Final Fantasy V is largely a turn-based JRPG, which means I get to move, enemies get to move, but there's a certain element of like character speed involved, which is going to influence on how quick we get our turn and consequently also how quick enemies get their turn. So that is going to be kind of also a big deal about, well, how quickly we get to act and how quickly enemies get to act and how many turns I get relative to the enemies and bosses as well. For the most part, early on, we are quick enough to just outspeed all the enemies since they're really slow. The first big hurdle actually is going to be, for example, Carl boss. So speed for your cactus is determined by your cactus agility. So to put it short, each character job class you can assign to a character has a certain, well, set of stats that they have as a baseline, and then the individual character, there is up to, well, 5 different individual characters. Initially we have Butts, Lena, Galuf and Ferris, and later on there will be another one. Each one of those have their strengths and weaknesses with their stats. And it's worth noting that outside of the job classes assigned and the bonus you gain from which character has that job class, you do not actually get any difference in stats at all. Leveling up only increases your, well, level number, which is used in order to calculate how much damage you deal and how much HP you have, how much MP you have, what your chance of success is with status effects, etc. So that's kind of worth noting in this kind of section here. So leveling up, pretty important in order to reach certain, like, thresholds. But also, there's limited use in leveling up in a lot of instances too. Alrighty. What else is there about Final Fantasy V? Oh yeah, job classes. In regular gameplay, you can effectively get and assign a job class anytime you want. Like, literally, anytime you want to change the job class, you just go to your menu, select the character, change the job class to whatever you want it to be, and we change the job class. Now, effectively there is character levels. The individual characters do gain experience. Also, the experience is split among party members, so that means with a solo character and only using one job, we are only going to get experience for that one character and effectively gain more experience on one character than you usually would on a full party for each individual one, in a sense anyways. So, the reason why you may want to change job classes in regular gameplay is twofold. One, of course, if you need a magic user in order to use some spells, then you want to switch over to a mage type class. However, if you have the character stay a mage for long enough and you gain enough ability points, or, well, job points if you will want to call them like that, the characters also do gain a corresponding amount of experience for the job classes themselves. The reason why the experience for job classes is relevant is because the higher a character gains job levels, the more abilities they unlock for from that specific job. For example, a black mage can learn black magic level 1, then black magic level 2, black magic level 3. You get the idea. That's just kind of pretty much the black mage, kind of straightforward. And then you can equip that black mage spellcasting ability on another character's job, or, well, let's say you turn the character from a black mage into a thief, then you have a thief who can use black magic if you assign them that specific ability, which basically it allows you for a lot of mixing and matching for the character's abilities. It's, well, kind of complete, let's put it that way. So, anything else I'm missing for explanation? Is anybody else a little bit confused about what the game is about? I'm not going to really go into what is going to happen in the story for the most part, because, well, this is more of a focus on the challenge of having only a single character with a single job class, meaning I will not change out of that job class at all, to try and complete the game with it. For reference, it is technically possible to complete the game with every single character with every single chop class. So there's that. However, there is one limitation for the Berserker, where we have managed to get to the final boss, but we have not managed to defeat the final boss because the probability of that happening is just unreasonable to try and get lucky without having some form of manipulation, something like that. But yeah, this is the Beastmaster. The Beastmaster is a bit of a strange chop class in that it is very situational, but also very powerful in, well, certain situations. I think you'll get to realize that very, very soon, once we get started. But, as usual, before we get really started, we kind of have to just grind for a while to reach a reasonable chop level, since with only a single character and having only, well, less than 100 HP at the start, you're going to get knocked out very, very quick. So we need at least a little bit more levels in order to have a certain HP threshold to be able to survive basic attacks from enemies. I have actually not yet calculated or checked what the Beastmaster stats are going to be and what I want to go for like specific levels, but we can do this just as we go, because there will be quite a bit of time, plus I get to explain some more stuff along the way. So after a few more cutscenes here, we will get fairies into our team. Oh yeah, maybe one thing worth noting, this is the Super Nintendo, or well, more specifically the Super Famicom version of the game. This version of the game was not originally released, well, outside of Japan. It is actually a fan translation I'm using in order to play this on my Super Nintendo here. And I'm also using a modified save states to unlock the chop class early in order to, well, have the chop class basically right now at this point. That's kind of the short version. Otherwise, the way you normally unlock chop classes is you climb certain towers, you progress the plot to a certain point where you unlock certain jobs, and for Beastmaster that would take quite a while until you would reach actually those thresholds to be able to, well, become a Beastmaster. And if I were to wait until I unlock all the classes, half the classes would defeat like the first 5-6 bosses without having any job. So we would just see a freelancer or the jobless class again and again and again and again, which would be rather boring. So it's more interesting to just unlock that job class before that. Alrighty, here we also get our 4th party member for now into our party, Ferris. And Ferris is going to be our main character. So generally speaking, to me, there's 2 characters I mainly choose for solo character challenge runs. One is Butts, because he is present for the most bosses and battles in the entire game, so he is kind of an obvious choice. And then there is kind of a secondary choice with Ferris. Ferris is only missing from one boss battle that Butts is present in comparison, and that boss battle I consider to be largely not that important, because just before you defeat the Antlion, you defeated X-Death, which is an order of magnitude more difficult than the little Antlion. So the Antlion I just get by in, well, whatever means necessary, let's put it that way. So here we go. We now have Ferris in our team. We're going to turn her into a Beastmaster right away. And it's also called the Mediator in the fan translation here. It's called Beastmaster in other translations, etc. And, well, this is our Mediator. We have a dagger equipped at the beginning of the game, so the special and unique weapons Beastmasters can equip are whips. We do not get whips until a fair bit later in. Actually, it's not that much longer, but it's going to take a little while longer in order to be able to equip these whips, so we can, well, consequently use the special weapon. And those whips are going to be useful. We will see. Then, worth noting, Beastmaster cannot equip shields, so which is kind of, well, too bad on that end. And, well, that's kind of all equipment we have. So, I'm going to put in the numbers into the calculator here for the stats. That way we can kind of figure out the basics. So, we have 40 strength with Ferris. So, for example, Ferris gets +3 strength as a character. Why is my keyboard not working? Oh, I'm not logged in. Hang on. I'm using Firefox to capture... Give me a second. I'm using Firefox to capture the browser windows for this stuff. And I forgot that I actually need to log in order to be able to adjust the spreadsheet. Kinda makes sense, I suppose, so not everybody can just change up the spreadsheet. But, by the way, if you're interested in copying the spreadsheet, feel free to do so. There's a calculator in there, and all that stuff. Alrighty. Okay, where's my calculator again? I need to move the calculator further over. Alrighty. Okay. There we go. Now I can change numbers. So, the Beastmaster starts with 40 strength, which is well above average. That is actually quite a good amount of strength for a character to have at this point in the game. The strength effectively basically determines how quickly we gain attack multipliers. So, kind of a quick introduction on how damage attacks, or, well, the damage in general works in Final Fantasy V. You do not gain a bit of more damage each level. You need to reach certain thresholds of level in order to deal more damage. For example, we are currently at level 3, and our threshold, or, well, our threshold of getting an attack modifier is going to be at level 4. So at level 4 we will deal a little bit more damage. At level 5 we will deal again a little bit more damage. At level 6, however, we will deal the same damage as at level 5. This is because of how the game calculates the formula, and effectively numbers get rounded down. That's kind of the short version. There's also the additional stuff with daggers getting additional attack power based on agility, and sometimes you actually even lose damage with a dagger based on certain levels and thresholds, and either way, this is something I kind of look for in order to determine what level I want to get in order to get through the next section, because if I just need to only get one more level in order to get a little bit more attack power, I might just do that after I feel comfortable with how much HP we have. Alrighty, so spell power, it doesn't really matter how much magic power we have on this character, it's kind of secondary. Then the dagger has an attack power of 14 total, and that is entirely determined by the weapon which you're using. And that's going to be pretty much it. Worth noting is we have 28 agility. Agility determines how quick we move in combat. The reason why that's relevant is the first real boss will have 30 agility. The reason why that's a problem is because that means the boss is going to be able to attack me first before I can hit him. And, well, already having one round in deficit and against that real boss is going to be difficult to handle, let's put it that way. Alrighty. Making a save file before we go, because it's going to be very easy to die against enemies, and that's going to be, well, largely it. Let's just go. The furry metal headphones, yeah. Beastmaster has a rather interesting design. You're just kind of halfway dressed up as a sheep? And it's definitely quite interesting. Also, there's a good blue welcome to you. You look forward to invading me in Demon Souls eventually. Well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I will have to have a PlayStation for that, which, well, I don't, unfortunately. And I don't feel like I have the current funds to get a PlayStation, so, oh well. We'll just wait for that a little bit later. So that guy just gave me 5 potions. Potions heal for 50 HP, which is a decent amount right now, but even after leaving the first dungeon here, actually, on the first real boss, after the tutorial boss coming up here, that is already not going to be a whole lot of... That is not going to be much damage at all. Very soon already. So, because this is Solo Character Challenge Run, we are going to just work on knocking out our allies. So, well, it's going to be easier to make this an actual solo character run, so to speak. So we just use this encounter here to accomplish this. Yeah, I figured Lena doesn't deal quite enough damage to knock herself out. Also, you may notice how long it takes for fairies to finally be no longer paralyzed. Paralyzation is a gigantic deal in solo character challenge runs because, well, if you can't do anything and you don't have other characters to help you out, that is effectively or potentially game over in a lot of cases. Let's put it that way. So, let's see, going for level 14, actually I haven't decided yet. I don't think we have to go that high of a level as a Beastmaster, because we will be able to use our special ability very soon. Also, we get leather shoes right off the bat here. That is kind of neat. Because leather shoes give us 1 more defense, and 1 more defense this early in the game is actually kind of a big deal, so I happily take that. Welcome to you as well. Amphatred? Or something like that. Oh, not a helmet. Okay, we are fully equipped, and that equipment is going to stay for a while until we get more. Also, we will kind of stick around here for a while until we gain a few more levels. Also, I always want to knock out these snakes first, but that snake is considered to be in the back row. If you attack an enemy within the back row, if you have a melee weapon equipped like the dagger, you effectively only deal half damage. It can be slightly less than half damage than that, based on certain circumstances, let's put it that way, because of rounding. But that's kind of the general rule of thumb. Similarly, I can sit in the back row myself, and my attacks will also deal half damage to enemies if I'm sitting in the back row, and that is also multiplied with enemies sitting in the back row. So if I'm sitting in the back row attacking an enemy in the back row, I will actually only deal... Well, that's annoying. I will actually only deal a quarter damage in that specific circumstance. So right now, I stick to the front row. I mean, in a weird kind of way, how can every single character in your team be in the back row or in the front row, you might ask? Isn't that kind of a weird concept when you only have one character? And I've actually been thinking about that since a while, because I do believe Final Fantasy II effectively has the same concept of front and back row as enemies have to use them, whereas you do not get to stay in the back row if there is no front row. However, Final Fantasy V just completely ignores that, which is much more convenient. So, this is the Wind Shrine, and, well, we're going to be grinding here for a little while longer, as you might expect. Mainly because we just want to have a bit more maximum HP to work with, and I also need to look ahead a little bit on what we want to capture. So I already have a plan on what to capture for bosses. So at this point, this is probably a good point to mention as to what capturing enemies even means. So, real quick, explaining this. If I capture an enemy with the catch command, I will be able to, well, halve the enemy. The enemy disappears from the battlefield. You can only capture regular enemies, for the most part anyways, and, well, you will then have that enemy stored. Let's say you have him in a Pokeball, or have them in a Pokeball, I guess. Kind of like Pokemon, very much, really. The difference between this game and Pokemon is that you only get to release the enemy once, and then you need to capture a new one. The enemy also has to be below 1/8 of their HP, so that is actually kind of a difficult threshold to reach in a number of circumstances, so there's that too. Go Sarisa, go! Mike ABC, thank you so much for 51 months of support. Holy cow, that's a long time. Welcome back. Well, I'm glad you enjoy your stay. I hope you're doing well. So, in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and fight this weird bird thingy. Well, once we get there. On this floor here, we can actually get into more difficult encounters overall. So I need to be a little bit more careful, especially once I hit level 5? I think it's level 5, where the goblins actually can potentially one-shot me. Might also be 6. I don't remember. Either way, welcome to the tutorial boss. The tutorial boss has 150-ish HP, something like that, so a bit more than the other enemies. But it's not too terribly strong, its physical attack is rather weak, its only other ability is a Breath Wing, which deals 25% of my maximum health in damage, which by the way would hit the entire party, but well, I am the entire party, so everything hits the entire party for a solo character challenge anyways. And while he has closed his wings, he has a good chunk more defense. In fact, my dagger has not enough attack damage to penetrate or get through the wings. So I'm just waiting until it opens back up, where it will pretty much always use Breath Wing again, and then we just hit it 2 more times until we win. It's kind of straightforward, honestly. The Wing Raptor is not usually much of a challenge at all, but Fairies just learned a new ability, so this is where we leveled level 1 Beastmaster, or reached level 1 Beastmaster, and it says Tame Beast-type monsters. What this actually means, it actually inflicts the stop effect on Beast-type enemies. And the stop effect is, well, a specific type of status effects that some enemies can or cannot be affected by. Additionally, it is the, well, restriction that you cannot use it on any enemy, it has to be specifically a beast. And by the way, fun fact, in the Game Boy Advance version for this game, they accidentally flipped the condition, so you can, in fact, apply the tame, or well, the stop effect with the tame command to any enemy except beasts. So I think this is actually the correct way around it, the Super Nintendo version, but we'll probably also figure that out along the way. Alrighty, we have gained a bunch of levels, but here's the thing. In order to be able to get past the next set of bosses, I need to be able to heal myself to a reasonable degree, as in heal myself up instantly, more or less. So for that I would like to have, well, about 3 elixirs, I think is probably a good place to start. And elixirs, you might know in Final Fantasy, that heals you to full HP, full MP, and it's really good to have an elixir, especially for later in the game, you might think. But Final Fantasy V is a bit of an oddball of a game, where the best regular healing potion is 50 HP. And that is not going to change for quite a long time to come, so we can easily heal with regular potion outside of combat, just buying 99 of them. It's like 5000 HP recovered, minus 50. Total anyways. But in combat, in order to spend as few turns not attacking and defeating the enemy as possible, we just want to have elixirs to be able to use them to heal to full as necessary. And a lot of solo characters actually have huge trouble getting past the first real boss. Oh, wait. However, that is actually going to be not exactly the case for the Beastmaster. During the next cutscene in the next town, I'm going to just kind of show you what I mean with this. But the short version is, the Beastmaster, you don't normally have a Beastmaster this early on in the game, and certain enemies have attacks and abilities that we can unleash on enemies that, well, the game wasn't exactly balanced around for. However, again, we can catch exactly one enemy and release exactly one enemy, and that's going to be it. Going to be a little bit tricky. I just keep waving every time I read the chat again. Alright. Unfortunately, it does not actually show up on the fontificator on the on-stream chat. I was looking whether there would have been an update recently, but unfortunately there wasn't. So, let's see. Okay, next order of operation is I'm going to go back to town. I'm going to buy a ton of potions, well, basically as many as I can afford anyways. We're going to watch a bunch of cutscenes so we can progress into the next area after that portion, and... well... in the meantime, during the long cutscene, I'm going to go ahead and also... I'll show you exactly what I mean with Beastmaster not being exactly balanced around this early stage of the game. There's actually a number of solo characters that, as a consequence, effectively have nothing to use, or none of their special abilities work or weapons work because... oops, I pressed the wrong button. Ouch. None of their special abilities work because you're not supposed to have the job class this early, and it takes quite a long time until you even get your abilities and spells. Like Summoner was kind of a big example for that, where we had to play basically a very, very bad melee character until we finally got the summoning spells in order to use them in combat. And, oh, that was a struggle with the Summoner. We have currently the best armor and equipment and weapons that we can possibly buy, so I'm not going to worry about buying any more here. I'm also going to pick up Phoenix Downs, because they are really expensive in this game. Right here, there's a bunch of them laying around. There's also another pair of leather shoes just to the east of this big building here, but we already have leather shoes. I'm not gonna go out of my way for them. I'm not a beginner. I mean, I'm not a beginner, yeah, but the items you get in the beginner house are very handy, especially the ether, which sells for quite a lot of money this early on. So I just pretend I'm a beginner. And I'm not technically wrong about that, because I'm beginning this adventure anew. So, well, oh well. Either way, let's go over to our captures. So, real quick, once again, shoutouts to Dragondark, who created this capture list. It's actually a bit more expensive than what is being displayed here. I just kind of cut it down a bit in order for it to, well, only contain the information I'm going to be needing for here. And effectively here, these are all the enemies in this first section that we have access to, that we can capture and then subsequently, well, release on enemies. And there's a bunch of enemies. Most enemies anyways, if you capture them and then release them, they just attack. It's usually called strong attack or just attack or something like that. And they deal okay damage. Like if we capture a black goblin, it would deal 120 damage, which is about twice as much as we would deal with regular attacks, so it's pretty good. There's also enemies that we have access to, like the Stroper from the cave earlier where the pirates were, that can inflict status effects like poison, and there's even one that inflicts instant death, apparently. So those can be very, very powerful in their own right. However, there's a lot of enemies and bosses that are only vulnerable to certain status effects. And in this little spreadsheet here, we have the first real boss here, Carl boss, coming up. He has 650 HP. And his status effect vulnerability is only stop and slow. Those are the only two status effects that he can be inflicted by. Plus, while slow lasts forever until dispelled or the enemy gets hasted, stop only lasts for a very, very, very brief moment if an enemy is considered to be heavy. Heavy enemies means that they are immune to various abilities that affect HP, instant death attacks to an extent, and status effects only last a very short amount of time if they are timed. So that's kind of the short version. However, as you may have already noticed, in this list here we have goblins. Regular goblins, not the black goblins in the Wind Shrine, that if we capture them and release them on an enemy, they will cast Flare. Now, to give you a frame of reference, Flare is effectively the strongest single target magic spell for a black mage. And because it's such high level black magic that apparently a little goblin can cast on an enemy if you capture and release it, well, we are going to be certainly using this because it should deal more damage than Carboss has HP for. So that's gonna be the plan for the first boss. So the Beastmaster, as a matter of fact, has a very easy way to deal with Carboss, which is, well, very convenient compared to a lot of other solo characters who will struggle a lot more. So, we buy 77 potions because we're going to be still wanting to get elixirs. Even though you might think, hey, but if you can just capture a goblin that deals over 1000 damage, why don't you just use it again in order to defeat the next bosses as well? And there's the catch with this, no pun intended, because we have to be able to get to the enemies and capture them, and after the first boss we're going to be sectioned off from the previous section and can no longer access the goblins. So we will have to specifically use skeletons, Carcursor, Underhusks and Psychoheads in order to try and defeat the next boss after that, which they're going to help out a little bit, but, well, we'll see how well it actually is going to work. Alrighty. Hey, welcome to your Raving Loon. I hope you have a nice day so far. By the way, I would like to give a huge shout out and thank you to a Raving Loon who put a tremendous amount of time into trying to figure out the solo Berserker and trying to figure out whether we can reasonably or possibly do any form of RNG manipulation. We haven't quite found anything yet, but there has been a lot of work put in already. The little goblin is wearing 37 pieces of flare. Yeah. You'll get back to it someday. I mean, that would be great if you could figure it out, but at the same time, I have to admit, after the initial burst of just still running the solo Berserker, eventually it's just difficult to keep up with that, I feel. At least it is for me. Alrighty, we're going to go back in the Wind Shrine, and we want to defeat a bunch of Mold-Wind enemies. Mold-Wind enemies give us a 1 in 16 chance to drop elixirs, and well, that's basically as good as it gets for getting elixirs. And as I mentioned before, I want to have about 6 of them. Just a reference for people. I still don't get it. That's okay. Welcome to you, Dryzalizer. I hope you're doing well. Another layer of control for solo berserkers, which part of slot you put them in. Yeah, that's actually very true. That's very, very true. Yeah. I think I don't remember where, but I did figure that out based on certain evidence and circumstance. Alrighty. So we have multiple enemies, 3 times a 1 in 16 chance to, well, get what we're looking for, basically. Unfortunately, we actually don't have currently strong enough weapons to knock out our own characters in one hit, so it's just gonna take a while. I guess I could unequip them with their equipment, so that would probably help too. Lena's probably not strong enough? Yeah, just barely not strong enough to knock herself out. Alrighty. And this is how we get back to solo character challenge runs. There's going to be quite a few places where plot is just going to revive our characters, and, well, we just have to knock them out again. The nice thing is, later on, I will have... well, I will buy slightly better weapons for my allies to knock themselves out guaranteed in one hit. So that's gonna be the plan. But that's not until a little bit later. I actually forgot to pick up the broadsword. We could have given this over to Galuf so he deals a bit more damage to himself. Okay, and we're just going to walk around for a while. So these Moldwind enemies actually are a little bit dangerous on how they attack and function. Their first attack is always going to be a regular hit. And even though it says critical, not all enemies that use an attack that is called critical actually deal any more damage. It's literally just a special type of attack they have, which may or may not have any other function aside from just doing a regular damage. So even though it is named critical hit, a lot of enemies have an attack called critical hit that deal the exact same damage as a regular attack. Other enemies deal like 1.5 times damage, other enemies deal like double damage with the critical hit, or tackle or tail attack. Most of these attacks just don't have any other function added to them, let's put it that way. Moldwind enemies do have an ability called, or well, Aero, which they only use in their second turn. I don't remember whether it's a 1 in 3 chance or a 2 in 3 chance. But enemies effectively choose between one of 3 possible moves each turn they get. And they have kind of a certain amount of, or a certain list of moves they can possibly go through. And that's going to be pretty important for the first boss coming up, because that is also why it's important that I would like to try and get an initial attack on the next real boss, Carl boss coming up, rather than, well, getting knocked out. Also, Goblin Punch, pretty interesting ability. Goblin Punch deals 8 times damage ignoring defense if you are the same level as your target, if you use Goblin Punch. Okay, now we just hope to get a bunch of Moldwinds and hopefully getting elixirs. In the meantime, let's take a look at the list of abilities. So, we pretty much determined what we want to use in order to get past the next boss, which is called Carl Boss. And I'll explain as to why it's such a big deal to be able to effectively one-shot that guy once, well, we get around to that point. Or a little bit later, I guess. Then afterwards, we only have access to Skeleton, Carcursor, Undead Rusk and Psycho Head enemies in order to try and use them. Now, here's an interesting one. We can inflict Break or Confusion with catching an Undead Rusk. We can inflict Break, or we can inflict Confusion with a Psycho Head enemy if we manage to capture them. Now, a lot of bosses and enemies are like immune to certain status effects, but let's see. Here, Siren actually has a number of status vulnerabilities. We can instant kill her, so she's vulnerable to death, but there's no enemy that inflicts death that we can capture at that point. She is vulnerable to petrification. Hey, that's actually a thing. There's going to be a catch to that, however. I'll get to that in just a moment. She is vulnerable to poison. She could be blinded, bolded, paralyzed, berserked, stopped and slowed. However, Siren has 2 separate forms, and the second form is actually immune against a number of these things. She, however, can still be petrified and blinded, as well as stopped and slowed during that fight. So, if we look back at the list of enemies we can capture during that part, we can still capture the enemy that inflicts Break. That is effectively petrification. And this is probably what I'm going to be going for. Now, there's a bit of a catch to this. Unfortunately, I don't have this in the list, but enemies have a certain level associated with them. Undead Rusks are probably like level 10 or so, 8, 9, something like that. And the chance to hit for spells is determined based on level versus level comparison and chance to hit. So Break has, I don't remember the numbers, but just let's roll with 75% chance to hit. And if the Undead Rusk is the same level as the enemy it is trying to hit with the Break ability, it will actually deal or have a 75% chance of success. However, if the enemy is 50 levels higher than the Underrusk, it is going to be, well, only a 25% chance of success, which I dare to say is still pretty good for the purposes of a solo character challenge and instantly winning. Now, Siren actually is level 2, which consequently means we have actually a slightly higher than usual chance to hit an enemy with a, or well, her with a status effect. So we can use that. I thought, oh yeah, she has regular magic defense, not magic evasion, that's why I remembered. Okay. I was actually going to say we want to probably wait until she changes form before we try to petrify her because of magic evasion, but she actually does not have magic evasion in the first form. However, she has magic defense, but well, you don't really care about magic defense if you use an insta-kill spell. It is just the chance to hit that's relevant, which, well, magic evasion affects that. 75 is correct for break. I see. Welcome to your course anyway. I hope you're doing well. Alrighty, and that's kind of all I have to say about that for now. So we have a plan on what we want to do against the two bosses coming up. And that's kind of what I mean with you have to plan ahead. Sometimes you can capture an enemy and go into the next area where you will be cut off from going back anywhere at all. So you have to be a little bit careful about how far or how quick you progress into next areas if you still may need to capture certain enemies in the previous area and use them on the bosses coming up. In fact, I will actually defeat Gilgamesh as a level 1 Beastmaster as Galuf, I think, because we can't just capture a Goblin and unleash it on him. Actually, I don't think Goblin works. But a Zoo should work, actually. We'll get to that. Also, I actually very frequently in the past solo challenges got pretty lucky with finding elixirs while grinding here. Well, looks like we're not getting as lucky today. Also, I should focus on killing the snakes first because they can paralyze me. And then I should focus on killing the mold winds next because they deal a lot of damage with their wind spell. But only on turn 2. And since we got a preemptive strike, I'm gonna kill him before he gets to the second turn. So I can just hold down the button to defeat him. Alrighty, I think I've covered most of my bases on how this game works and introduction. Oh yeah, worth noting, I think it is like a 3 or 2 in 16 chance or 3 in 16 chance to get a preemptive strike, which means the enemies are going to be heavily delayed until they take an action. Actually, they're going to be heavily slowed down until they take an action, which is not the same as just their first turn being delayed. That's kind of besides the point. Getting a back attack, on the other hand, is kind of the opposite, but it's only 1 in 16 chance of happening, which I've actually been really lucky that we haven't run into a back attack yet so far. So, surprising on that end, but also not particularly lucky to get elixirs. Then again, we already did get 2 separate pairs of leather shoes from the Black Goblins, which is also 1 in 16 chance to drop. So any enemy that doesn't have a guaranteed item drop is effectively 1 in 16 chance. We're already level 10. Wow. To be fair, we probably don't need elixirs on the Beastmaster because it is either we kill the enemy or they kill us. So, oh well. Let me actually check the calculator in this case. What is a good level for attack power in this scenario? Level 14. Okay, if I don't get 3 elixirs by level 14, I will be going on. That actually might be even a bit late for that. We don't really need to wait that long, technically. Okay, welcome to Pika. Feel free to correct me on how to pronounce your name. Are you XP boosting so they gain levels faster? Kind of, I guess. It just happens to be part of the deal. This is a solo character challenge run with just a single job, so I do get more experience this way, but it's more of a consequence of this being a solo character run. So it is not as a strategy to play through the game normally, let's put it this way. Which is a very valid strategy to just boost a single character to really high power. By the way, whenever you get back attacked, you actually flip front and back rows, which means conveniently, I actually take only half damage from the multiple enemies from the regular attacks when I get back attacked. Still no elixirs, oh well. Welcome to your Pete Smells. Well, I hope you enjoy your time here and good night. Rest well. Well, I don't know whether it's good night for you, but I guess it's time to relax for a while. So that's nice. There's not a whole lot to talk about right now. I'm actually largely just kind of trying to get back into the groove of the game, trying to plan ahead for more enemies and bosses on the side, because there's not a whole lot I have to pay attention to on these enemies. If they happen to use a wind attack that's like 76 damage maximum or so. Either way, as long as I have more than 76 health, I should easily survive it anyways. Still no elixirs. Wow. Alright. Ooh, there we go. 1 elixir acquired. I feel like 1 is actually going to be sufficient for a Beastmaster. Really don't need anything more than that. We could also still get more. Sing us a song, Yaga. A song of all the old times. So here's a thing. I like singing, but I don't like singing in front of an audience, if that makes sense. Just for myself. So sorry to disappoint, but probably not. Alrighty. So, oh, right. I can't unequip characters that are knocked out on the floor, so I wanted to actually grab the knife from Lena in order to deal less damage that I'm dealing right now, so we can potentially capture weaker enemies. So I will have to figure out something here. So, as mentioned before, in order to capture enemies, we need to deal a certain amount of damage to them, so they are weak enough to be captured. And for capturing a goblin, which appears around here-ish, we have to deal 14 damage. They have 16 health, so they have to have 2 HP or less in order to be at 1/8 HP or lower. So, I did not actually consider that, but I might deal too much damage here. That is exactly 16 damage. That is exactly knocking them out here. So I need to have an 8 and a 6, I guess? Can I even get 8 since... There it is. Right, so we can possibly deal 14 damage to them with just punching. But we need to get lucky, so this might take a while. 6 and 8. No, don't crit! Ah, my goodness. Fist attacks have like a 5% chance to miss and a 1 in 16 chance to critically hit or so. Or was it 1 in 82 chance critical? I don't remember. It's been a while. But yeah. To be fair, grinding streams are the perfect things for like what you're doing right now. Tedious Pokemon things. Ooh. If I may ask, what kind of tedious Pokemon things? Yeah. This kind of stream is probably... Ooh, there we go, we can capture this guy now. This kind of stream is probably pretty good to have in the background overall. So we can catch him! Hooray! Nice. We could just catch him in a gourd or something like that. I'm not sure what it is, but it kinda looks like a gourd. So we equip the dagger again and just knock out the goblin. And that's all we need to do here. I'm going to go ahead and stock up on potions before we head into the next area to defeat the boss. This is Pokemon Final Fantasy 5, pretty much. It's okay. Oh. Well, thank you for your kind words, Wild Dog Arcade. I appreciate those. And welcome. And enjoy your lurking. You're trying to get Spiritomb in the newest generation Sword and Shield. Trying to get all available legendaries before you reset for a new playthrough. Oh boy. Well then, good luck with that. I have actually no idea what the conditions are for the Spiritomb in the latest release. I have not played the DLC of Sword and Shield. I did get all currently, well, without DLC available Pokemon, but I haven't played after. Alrighty, into the breach we go. Not going to cast Flare on the Goblin. No, because if I release the Goblin, that catch is going to be gone. I can only use it once. So I would have to catch another Goblin in order to, well, capture or use Flare again. So I kind of need it for this boss here. Alrighty, so we have Octo Rican, which by the way, fun fact, the enemies in this section here, the octopus and whatever the other enemies' names were, they actually only attack Lena and Ferris, which, well, those are the female characters. Make of that what you will. But it's just kind of a little fun fact. But if you have Galuf and Butts in your party, they will never get attacked. Or well, if you have, let's say, the solo character challenge run of Butts, you literally don't take damage here. You can run around left and right here forever, hold down the attack button, and you get forever experience, basically. You have to find a particular tombstone in the newest DLC, Crown Tundra, and then interact with 32 players on the field map to get it to appear. I see. That's kind of like the original, if I'm not mistaken. I've actually never played the original where it initially appears, but I've heard stories. Especially since the online service thingy has shut down. Alrighty, real quick, we're going to encounter Carl Boss here. Just to give you a frame of reference, we're going to be slower than Carl Boss. Which means there's a 2 in 3 chance that we get paralyzed in the first turn with Tentacle, because Tentacle is an attack and paralyzation at the same time, and there's not really anything we can do about that. Then in the subsequent 2 turns, he has a 1 in 3 chance to Tail Screw, 1 in 3 chance to paralyze, and 1 in 3 chance to do just a regular attack. Tail Screw puts us into critical HP, which is really bad if we get stunned, Tail Screwed, and then just attack because we are dead. But in this case, we can release the Goblin, Flare is an attack spell, so it is actually completely... Well, you always hit with attack spells, let's put it this way, there's no chance to hit with spells that just deal damage. And this one here just straight up kills Carbos. Carbos only has 650 HP and we deal over 1000 with the Flare Goblin. So, very convenient. Most of the solo cactus actually struggle a lot against Carbos, some more than others. But yeah, the Beastmaster just catches the Goblin, releases it and you win. Very handy. So yeah, Carbos, not an issue, as long as we get to attack at least once, which is not guaranteed. As you could see, there's like a 2 in 3 chance that we get paralyzed on the first turn, and then 1 in 3 chance on the next turn to get put the critical HP, and then another 2 in 3 chance actually to take more damage. Technically, the odds are overwhelmingly in our favor for defeating Carbos if we can one-shot it, but we can still die to it. Secret Goblin Magic, indeed. A very strong spell, to say the least. And here we arrive on the ship graveyard, which by the way, we passed out on the ship and we got healed up to full, so we will have to knock out our characters again. So that's just gonna be a thing. We don't need the flail, so I'm just gonna ignore that item and just continue on. Welcome to you, Laracas. I hope you're doing well. Wrapping a bunch of stuff here along the way, mainly just honestly out of habit. I don't need tents on this character, I don't think. And if we sell them, it's I think like 125 gold. I will probably not be struggling for money on this character. I say probably because I don't really know yet. I'm also not going to bother fighting anything yet. That will come later. 990 gil. I'm doing quite fine, thank you. Glad to hear you're doing fine as well, that's nice. Because there's coming up another scene here where our entire party is going to rest in some beds, which means they get healed to full again. So it's kind of mostly pointless to just try and grind before that. Knocking them out. Well, it's not pointless as much as it makes more sense to try and do stuff afterwards instead. And here we are. This is also where we finally get to save. And it's actually pretty nice with a lot of characters that struggle to defeat Carbos. Like mages that literally have to use a dagger and deal or attack like 12 or 16 times until they defeat Carbos. Which you need to get lucky-ish in order to be able to hit once. Hitting about 10, 12, 16 times total in one boss fight against Carbos is actually really unlikely. So, notable characters that struggled an enormous amount against Carbos are the Summoner, who has the lowest strength score as well as a super awkward number of agility, which actually caused some problems against the boss. And we also had a lot of trouble with the White Mage. Although in the solo White Mage challenge run I actually did get incredibly lucky managing to defeat Carl Boss well before the expected, well, amount of attempts. Let's put it that way. But still, it's quite a struggle with a lot of characters. Beastmaster, well, you just capture a guy and boom, you win. There is our favorite cross-dressing pirate queen. Yep. Alrighty. Now it's time to knock our friends back out. So they can go to sleep. Bonk. Bonk. Guys, you need to hit those guys. There we go. And here is also where I'm going to go ahead and... Well, actually, thinking about it, I should go back and capture an undead Rusk enemy. So we've already seen the undead Rusk enemies, that is what I'm going to be planning on getting. However, I'm actually kind of curious what the car cursor enemy would do if I capture them and release them, because it says it casts Embrace, which fully heals HP and inflicts Petrify. So it's kind of like using Break, but with a different attack set. It's kind of strange. I'm not sure what it is. But I'm also worried that because it fully heals HP, it targets your own party, which consequently would mean that it would target Ferris. And if you only have one character and that character gets petrified, well, that's it, it's over. Which is less than ideal, to say the least. Alrighty, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to go ahead and just knock out the Psycho Head enemy here. And then we need to deal 114 damage to the Undead Rusk. So the Undead Rusk has 130 HP. That's 70, that's going to be too much. What is my range of attacks anyways? So I'm just going to hope here that Ferris deals less damage than that here, 65. 65 plus 65 is exactly 130, so I would actually need to have Ferris deal less damage than that with her attack, so I will likely want to equip her with a weaker weapon in order to defeat these enemies here. Or well, be able to capture them. Ooh, also she drops really low on HP. That's kind of rough. Caught it in an Ultra Ball. Nice. Congratulations, Coach anyway. That's nice. So I know that there's no Grimer in the first DLC of Pokemon, but is there a Grimer in the second DLC? Okay, ID is way too much, so I will have to... how do I do this? Hang on. I'm actually going to go back real quick and revive the other cactus so I can grab the dagger from Lena. The reason why I want to use the dagger rather than the fists is because the fists can randomly critically hit, plus they are weaker than the dagger, and I want to deal a little bit more damage. Basically, the more weapons I have in order to vary up my damage so I can bring enemies to low HP without killing them is kind of important. So that's going to be what I want to do, so remove the dagger. Also, might as well just remove all of their equipment so they have less defense, so they knock themselves out slightly faster. There's still a handful of Pokemon that aren't allowed in Sword and Shield. Oh. No Grape Jelly Monster. Okay, hang on. Car Cursor has 75 HP, so I need to deal 64 HP. Oh, nice crit. Nice. Wrong character. I'm actually gonna run away here because the tongue inflicts HP leak status, which continuously drains your HP even while you're menuing, and especially this early in the game, it's actually a lot of damage you take from that. So it's kind of a big deal. Ow. Also, it is random which character they attack. There's no preference based on party slot of the character, in case you're wondering. So it's just completely random that they happen to continuously attack fairies here. So I'm hoping that the Psycho Head is now in the front row. Okay, it is in the front row, good. Otherwise I would deal only half as much damage. Alright. Okay. And I need to start healing up here. I'm actually gonna go into the back row before I do anything else. That way I only take half the physical damage. And by the way, I say half the physical damage, but you could clearly see this was less than half of the damage that I took earlier. And the reason is quite simple. Some enemies have attack multipliers of 4. Let me actually real quick explain how multipliers work. Let's say the dagger has an attack power of 14. There's a bit of variance to that, but 14 damage is our baseline. At level 11, Fairies has an attack multiplier of 5, thanks to strength agility level. And that means 14 times 5 is about 70 damage. So on an enemy with 0 physical defense, Fairies will deal 70 damage, plus a little bit of variance, because there's a bit of randomness attached to it. If she attacks from the front row, on an enemy will in the front row with 0 defense, so 70 plus damage is going to be the baseline for her attack power here. That's how multipliers work. And if you're in the back row, the multiplier for your attack is halved, which means instead of having an attack multiplier of 5, she would have 2.5. But half numbers don't exist, they get truncated, so it's actually 2 attack power, or 2 multiplier instead. So it's actually less than half damage in comparison here. So there's that. Hello, Fortan. So that's kind of the short version. Now, I'm sitting in the back row, so 32 damage. Let's see, that actually might just work out. 26 is 38, 58. That is 88 damage. If I get another 30, that would actually be pretty much perfect. Nice. Okay, we can capture this guy now. That is 118 damage, which is under the 1/8 HP threshold, so we can capture it. Alrighty, now we have captured a Undead Husk, and well, it will cast Petrify as we release it. On a random enemy, I might add. Petrify is a single target spell, and if there is only a single target for any given attack that the captured enemies do, then it will be just a random target. For boss fights, for the most part, it really doesn't matter, it's just one target anyways. Alrighty, in this cabin here we can go and grab a map, which is important for me because I get lost all the time. And further down we find some antidotes as well as Phoenix Downs. We actually could not buy antidotes until now. Well, until next city to be specific. So having them here is very useful because the boss can poison you. Poison is not that big of a deal as a status effect, but it's really annoying, and especially over the course of time you want to get rid of it, as you might expect. Poison deals 1/16 of your maximum health in damage every tick. So it can be a lot of damage in the long run. After 16 ticks you're usually dead. And in case you're wondering, poison does kill you. It does not stop at 1. Well, actually it stops at 1 in the overworld, to be more specific, I guess. Alright, did I forget anything? Actually, I can go into the back row, so I take only half physical damage. Because I'm going to rely on releasing our friend here, and hopefully just kill Siren that way. We'll see how well we will do with this. So once again, normally if you use status effects on enemies, it will effectively have a chance to hit baseline, and then you compare your level to the target level. In this case, Siren is level 2, and because we are level 11, 12, let's say 12, we would have a 10% increased baseline chance to hit Siren. So that would be 85% chance to hit break on her, so just a 15% chance to fail. If she had any magic evasion, which she does not, the 85% would get multiplied with however much magic evasion she has as a percentage. So, not quite how it works here, because the Undead Husk has its own level, and that is what is going to be taken into consideration. But it is safe to assume that the Undead Husk has a higher level than Siren, because level 2 for a boss is actually really low here. It's kinda curious. Alrighty, also if we fail, we have to watch this entire lengthy cutscene over and over again. But hey, Siren is not usually the biggest problem in the early game. Slow is really bad if you have to fight her the normal way, but for us, let's see what happens. Break. And it hit. That's it. Kind of anticlimactic for boss fights. We also get a bronze armor, which we can't use. You get a bronze shield if you defeat her in her undead form, but if you'd like to know more about the bosses and their forms and abilities, well, the Beastmaster doesn't have to worry about them, so we're just gonna continue on. Gives me more time to just focus on what is coming up next. This is actually going to be an interesting point. I need to look what I can capture now. So, we can still capture the enemies from the ship graveyard. We could literally just go... Actually, in fact, I will probably want to just check what I want to use for the next section here. So let me switch over the view for you guys. Oops, wrong thing. There we go. Alrighty, let's see. We are after Carl boss here, so the enemies we have access to are after Carl boss before Galura, if you will. So we have skeletons accessible, carcursors. Let's actually look at the enemy in question that we're going to be facing next. So the next set of enemies, or the next two bosses we're gonna face, because they are dual, are Magiza and Forza. However, if you defeat Magiza before Forza shows up, we can actually just, well, not have to worry about her. So she is, well, susceptible to petrification as well. We might just use that. She can also be blinded as well as muted. Well, that seems to be largely the only things we can inflict her with. Let's see whether there might be a bit more of a creative solution rather than just using break again. Let's see. Confusion does work on Forza, I happen to know that because that's the white mage strategy. But it's just once, plus it's a random target, so it's not that great. Slimer does inflict slow, which is actually really crazy powerful on bosses, but, well, just using break is better. Hey, there's a cockatrice that we can use that also inflicts break, so I actually don't even need to return to the previous section here. We can just continue and capture a different type of enemy at least. Then we have Doom. Inflicts Condemn. Oh, that's actually an interesting one. Oh, but that's in World's Castle. We actually don't get that. We're actually missing a boss here in the middle. We don't get the Garchimazra until later. Actually supposed to be an enemy right here. What's her name? Magiza and Forza. I actually don't have access to the lower section here. That's not until after we defeat them. So, yeah. I guess we're just going to grab a cockatrice from the mountain and use that. It's kind of the best thing we can do. We can mildly upgrade our armor here, but it really does not matter if we one-shot her anyways. I guess it would help a little bit in order to deal with enemies. Well, regular enemies that we have to defeat in order to get our friendly bird. But that's about it. Welcome to you, Dalek. Well, I'm glad you like them. Break time. Indeed, break time. Wait, actually, because the cockatrice have a chance to inflict petrification themselves, that means I can get petrified while trying to capture a cockatrice as well. We just hope that doesn't happen. That's kind of all there is to that. Alrighty. Save in the meantime and move on. Let's see. It's actually... hang on. Wait. We're missing a few enemies. Oh, the bighorn. Oh, the list is actually not entirely accurate on what we do have access to and whatnot. There's going to be bighorn, tattoo, and bandersnatch. Wait, no, bandersnatch. Either way, the enemies here, in case you're wondering. The bighorn is just a strong attack that deals 322 damage on an enemy with 0 physical defense. So, it's not bad, but also not what we're looking for. Same with Tattoo, it is 265 damage, they just do a strong attack as well. Then, next up we would have the Gatlings. Do I have them anywhere in my list? Let's see. I do actually not have Gatlings. I don't know what the Gatlings do. I would guess they use Needle, which either blinds or mutes enemies, which is like a 50-50 chance whether it blinds or mutes enemies, if they are susceptible to it anyways. Okay, Galacat. If we catch those, they will cast Float. Which actually, that's pretty awesome, because Float allows us to not have to worry about stage hazards, let's put it that way. Rock Garters, they use Slimer, which is actually slow, and yeah, slowing enemies. Slowing bosses, especially if they're susceptible to it, is incredibly powerful. So we might actually make use of these Rock Garters sometimes. I'm using the front row this that. Gatling cannot be caught. Oh, okay, I had no idea. You remember a while back, you watched me working on the Solar Berserker run. Was it possible to complete? Yeah, what Dialogue says, basically, it is theoretically possible to complete the Solar Berserker, but the probability of the stars aligning to the extent of that being possible are so low that, well, it's not exactly reasonable to try and go for it within a human lifespan. Well, that's what I say. I don't actually know the exact probability, but that's kind of the order of time invested needed that we are working with here. But if there's some form of possible randomness or luck manipulation that we could do, we would come back to it. But we got to the final boss. That's kind of as much as I promised with that run. Let's see. Oh, skeletons actually cause Thundara. I actually should look up more enemies that we happen to run across. Let's see, Galacats have 100 HP, that means they need to have 12 HP or less in order to capture them, which this thing has now 12 HP or less. Ouch, Cat Kick, that's so much damage, holy cow. But I can catch it now. Which means I can now cast Float. Well, I hope it casts Float on me and not the enemies. Sometimes stuff does weird stuff. Think Circle proof, it is not very likely, yes. Very accurate. Alright, equip your dagger again for later. Release the float. Alright, Ferris should be floating now. Yep, she's floating. Nice. So we can actually get the float status effect, which persists between battles, but if we use a tent or get any like regular cutscene heal, the float status will be gone. But it's not going to last for that long. But I just think it's funny that we actually do have access to float, which a lot of even mage classes and support classes do not have access to. Well, there's one of the cockatrices. We're gonna try and catch them a bit later. But these flowers here would normally poison your party. But because Ferris is floating, she's literally just floating over any hazard on the ground. So it's kind of funny that she just ignores them. Because floating is great. But yeah, I should probably just kind of comment on every single enemy, what they do, rather than, well, forgetting about that. In that case, let me actually go back real quick on what enemies do and don't do. Go ahead and try to... This actually... I think... Trying to figure out real quick here whether this is a good idea. I may want to get into an encounter with a single cockatrice. So some enemies actually only use certain abilities once they are the last enemy remaining in a fight. So I'm actually not going to defeat the Rock Garter quite yet. It might just have a 1 in 3 chance to use its petrification ability anyways. Also, we do not have enough HP to survive this whole recover. So I might just wait until we get into an encounter with a single cockatrice instead. These things are strong. Hello, welcome to you, Quadlight. Well, let's see. In previous areas, we had access to goblins, which cast Flare, basically the strongest single target black magic spell, as we already covered. So it's really, really good. Then we had the Killer Bee, which casts Needle, which inflicts either darkness or blind at random, if the enemy is susceptible to it. I think I'm gonna try and use a knife. Ooh, that's too much damage. Let's hope this guy doesn't try to petrify me. Back to the dagger. So it is 92 damage, but less than 100 that we need to deal. How much damage did I just do? I did not pay attention. Oh no. Chat helped me out here. I did not see how much damage it was. Wave. 70. Alright, thank you, PJ. Alright, so I'm going to attack unarmed. That's 8 plus 6, that is 14, that is 84. So we actually need to attack once more, and then try to capture. They do have a bunch of evasion, so chance to hit is not that great. 84, 92, that's exactly how much HP we need to have this thing, so we can capture it now. Hopefully. Nice, thank you, PJ. Perfect. Wave. Alrighty, that's all it is. By the way, when you capture an enemy, you only get you get 1 ability point out of it, but you actually do not get their experience. So if you think you can just capture a high-level enemy, and instead of removing the remainder of their HP, that does not quite work. Alrighty. Now, as mentioned before, Cockatrice inflicts petrification when we release it, and we're going to try and use this on this boss. Now, Magisa here also does not have any magic evasion and is level 8? Hang on. She is level... Yeah, she's level 8. Cockatrice is level... Actually, I don't see the levels. Either way, I don't actually know what the chance for the beak, not break, beak, petrification is, so, well, we'll just see how lucky we need to get. In case you're wondering, we could just check out the algorithms guide for this and look up all the numbers, but let's just see whether it's gonna work. Nice. Ow. Release. And it failed. But hey, we saved. In case you're wondering, yes, this does count as a death in my book. So the Beastmaster is actually going to have probably a lot more resets than actual deaths, But traditionally I just decided that whenever we mess with these kinds of abilities, I just can't handle it as a death. We would reasonably likely be able to defeat Magiza and Forza with just regular attacks as a Beastmaster, but, well, I feel like it makes more sense to try and use our abilities. You might want to check her weakness again, Yaga, really? She can be petrified according to my list, but maybe my list is not accurate. Well, that would explain why we didn't hit here. That would be really bad, actually. Okay, let me find the algorithms guide, because it's been a long time since I last used it. There we go. Alrighty, Magiza. Okay, she's immune to death, petrification, not that. Alright, my list is actually wrong in this case. Let me adjust that in the master list, because apparently that's wrong. I did not realize that. So, in fact, she is not vulnerable to petrification. Well, learn something new. Yeah, she's immune to petrification, so this is not going to work. So in this case, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to capture a rock garter in order to try and defeat her. So I've been kind of contemplating this one. Alternatively, we could try using a bighorn in order to deal her the remainder of her HP in damage to try and defeat her right away. We'll see how well that's going to work. So yeah, apparently when I originally made this list, I made a mistake somewhere. Good to know, thank you for the heads up, because I would have probably tried a bunch again until I finally realized that I probably should double check that data. Alrighty, let's see, rock garters, they have 120 HP, we need to deal 105 damage. I don't remember how much damage this was, but it doesn't matter on the first one. I'm gonna try and capture the second one. $70. Okay, it's always going to be too much damage on the second attack, no matter what I do here. So I'm gonna use a knife and see how much damage that's going to do. That is 110 damage, that is actually within the range, so we can just capture it. Alrighty, a rock garter here will inflict HP leak as well as slow, which being able to slow a boss is insanely powerful. In fact, slow and haste are the most powerful status effects in the entire game, because they last literally until dispelled. The character dies, the enemy dies, you get the idea. They are very, very powerful status effects. And to give you a frame of reference, right now Magiza is slightly faster than we are. She will be a lot slower than we are right now. With that bighorn strat actually has better chance for immediate success, but let's just try and be a bit creative. So the thing is, unfortunately the rock garter also inflicts HP leak status, which is kind of bad actually, because we don't have an exact number on how much damage this is going to deal. I know it's approximately 100, probably. That's just kind of the number I usually go with for HP leak on a boss and enemy, but actually I've never checked it. It depends on like actions that we take and how long we remain in the menus. So what other chants or abilities and characters could we have? Psycho Heads can cause confusion, break for Undead Rusk, Embrace, Pandara. Bighorn would really be the only other reliable one. Death or Paralyze from the Bandersnatch. Alrighty, let's see whether Bighorn is going to work. Not Bighorn. It's going to work. Alrighty. Release, Mucus. It did hit, so that's good. So she's going to be slowed, so we're going to go a fair bit faster than she does now. Alrighty. She does over 200 damage in case she decides to use Drain. So I actually may have to grind a little bit in order to survive her second attack, potentially. But she only uses drain every other turn, so that's 50... let's say 150-ish damage. I'm not gonna be able to avoid her summoning Forza thinking about it. So I'm just going to go for phase 2 here right away. I feel like our better option is to just go and grab a big horn. He's not going for phase 2 yet. Ooh. He should call Forza basically right around now. She's already in the back row? Wait. Why did I only deal 35 damage? Oh, I'm using a knife rather than the dagger. Well, that's pretty awkward. I was thinking, I'm dealing really low damage. Well, guess why? You're using the knife. Oh dear, that's really not good. So I'm gonna try and knock out Nagisa here. So Forza is an entirely physical attacker, he deals a lot of damage. And he also has actually some defense. Ooh, I'm going to die here. I do not have enough HP to survive this. Yeah, I'm going to get knocked out here. 162 damage, alrighty. Oh boy. Hey. Oh. Whoops. We still had the small screen. Sorry about that. I still need to get used to switching this properly back. Short version is Forza, the big burly guy, deals a ton of damage, and we would need to be a fair bit higher level to have a more reliable way of defeating them head on. It's technically possible, probably, but let's just go with the bighorn strategy at this point, I think. Small deaths are only half deaths, maybe. Oh, right. Increase the death count. That's my death count number. There it is. The blocks can inflict darkness and force are the only other thing you can think of. Yeah, I think darkness would be a pretty decent way of going about it, honestly. That's definitely a good idea, actually. Blocks would be... so you can inflict blind on enemies in this game, and unlike Final Fantasy 1 or Final Fantasy 6, blind actually has a major impact on enemies' chance to hit. In fact, they will miss 3/4 of their physical attacks just because they're blinded, which is a huge deal. So we could, in theory, well, work with that. That is a reasonable option, to say the least. But I'm going to try and skip the second phase entirely. Too many enemies for my taste. But yeah, the block enemies, which we actually haven't seen any yet, have we? The block enemies do inflict Flash, or use Flash as a spell. Flash uses or hits all enemies on the screen with a relatively low chance to actually hit. Well, relatively low compared to other chance to hit spells. But, well, it can blind all enemies, which is kind of a big deal. But one of the big reasons why I would want to skip the second phase and also maybe gain a level or two here before we do anything else is because, well, there's a level, nice. Nagisa can use Drain as a spell, and Drain has a lot of base magic power. You saw that she used Ice and Fire and such as spells, and that dealt a solid amount of damage to us. Well, Drain deals about 3 times as much damage. It's pretty extreme, actually. So we kind of need to get lucky enough to be able to avoid that. And this is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for bighorn enemy to capture that one rather than a tattoo. Tattoo does just do a regular strong physical attack, but the other one is just a little bit stronger, so we want to go for them. Bighorn has 90 HP, Tattoo has 100. So we need to actually deal 81 damage to the bighorns in order to capture them. There we go, this bighorns 75. So I'm pretty sure the knife would deal too much damage at this point. So I'm just going to use my fists here. 75 to this. Actually going to be too much. Especially if the critical hit this is too much. Oh boy. Garrus just punched the ball to death. That's somewhat impressive, I guess. Let's use a knife. Let's see. 35. And that is exactly 80. We need to deal 1 damage to this guy. That's actually kind of a problem. We don't really have a way to deal 1 damage. So either I heal it with a potion, or I hope that we miss. And deal 1, well, less damage. Nope. That did not work out in my favor. Let's just try it again, I guess. Potentially I will want to capture another enemy to deal slightly less damage to that guy. Maybe. Let's see, what else would we have potentially to use? So the skeletons from the ship graveyard are actually pretty interesting to capture and release, because they will cast Thundara, which is a level 2 lightning element spell. Let's actually see how much damage we deal with the dagger from the back row. Level 2 lightning element spell is about 212-ish damage. So that can be really good. $30 and 28 is 58. That should actually just work as long as it's not more than 30. Yeah, that is 88 damage. That's good. So we have it has 2 HP remaining, which is enough leeway for us to be able to capture it. Wait, I had that backwards. 80 damage would have been sufficient to capture it. Whoops. Oh well. That's okay. Okie dokie. We got that. Let's go back in. Don't rabbits normally eat candy, though? Well, they like to eat candy. That is certainly true. Candy, cookies, chocolate, the 3 C's of a balanced rabbit diet. Oh, there we are. Those blocks, they cast blind on enemies whenever they get released. Which would be actually a decent alternative, I would say. We would still need to be able to somehow get past Magiza, and having only 1 elixir to heal us to full as an emergency way would be kind of potentially be problematic. So worth noting, let's see, how much MP does Magiza have? In this game you can run enemies and bosses out of magic. If we couldn't, then some characters might actually be virtually impossible to beat the game with. Just as a strange heads up, I guess. Let's see. Our boss escaping his box on my list here for some reason. Alright, where's Magiza's unfortunate? There she is. She has 200 MP to work with. Ice, fire, and lightning all cost 3 MP. Drain costs like 16? So running her out of MP is technically an option, but it would take quite a long time. Alrighty. Oh wait. Oh shoot, okay. So I think this plan is actually not going to work. So for some reason I thought she... Oh no, it's fine. So Magiza has 650 HP. Once she drops below 300 HP, she will cast Forza. Our Bighorn will be able to deal 322 damage, according to this list here. So... we need to deal 650 minus 322 damage to her. That is 338 damage in order to be able to defeat her, but we do not want to deal more than 349 damage. That's right. That does not sound right. 328 damage is what we need to deal. We do not want to deal more than 350. Alrighty. Okay, so... basically she only calls her husband once she drops below a certain threshold of HP. So, dagger is the correct button, let's go. Ouch. 52 damage. 80. So we need to keep track of how much damage we deal to her. Hopefully she does not use Rain. Case in point. We just healed up all the damage that we just did. And dealt a ton of damage to us. She can only use Rain with a 1 in 3 chance every other turn, so we just hope that she doesn't. That's kind of all there is to this. 85. Arrow. 75. 160 damage. Ow. Plus 80 is 240. Wait, no, that's 100 too few. Arrow. We are not gonna survive another attack here. 75. She needs to do a physical. We are 315 damage in. That is not quite enough. Oof. Alright, so we need to get a bit luck here with her dealing damage. Other than that, we might just need to level up a little bit more. If we try to out-heal with potions, which, remember, they only heal 50 HP. Not a whole lot. It's gonna be a bit tricky. Rump. Oh, GlitchCon, is that still a thing, or is that already over? Because I remember that being a thing. I was interested, but I didn't have time to look into it. I was kind of having mild hopes, by the way, for the Beastmaster to be one of the contenders for least deaths overall, but because of the inherent, well, low HP and damage nature, I guess, of the Beastmaster without getting lucky, well, we might not get as lucky, I suppose. Hero. 70, that's 145. 80, that's 225. And Rain, we're dead. Gonna try this a few more times. If I'm going to go ahead and grind, I will probably go back to the ship graveyard. The undead husk enemies do have a chance to drop more elixirs, so we could actually use some more, I suppose. And hey, Napshot, I'm doing quite fine, thank you. How are you doing today? But yeah, such is the nature of trying to go, well, before I'm reasonably high level grinded on any character, really. Most characters had to grind a lot more in order to get past Carl Boss, and subsequently they may have a little bit of trouble with Magiza, but for the most part it's not that big a deal. And the Beastmaster is just kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum. Well, a little bit. We still have our strategy, but because we're not as high up as we would be otherwise, it's going to be a little bit tricky. Let's see. It really doesn't help that she's just ever so slightly faster than we are. So she's just going to get the initial first attacks and drain. I mean... 85. We just hope she doesn't do that all the time. was kind of hoping she would not deal enough damage to knock us out there, so we can heal now. Even with potions, we actually would not be able to survive or run her out of magic. Because we don't have enough HP to spare for her to, well, not deal too much damage. So if we get another 80, we actually, or 85. Oh. She has 335 HP lost. A bighorn... Wait. Yeah, actually, it should kill her. Right. We're in the 24 even. Alrighty. We win. Need a bit of luck, but this is fine. Also, we get a whip. So, normally you don't actually get the Beastmaster class until still quite a fair bit later, until after the next set of crystals. But we got a whip. So normally the way you would be able to use this whip right now is you need to transform your character back into a freelancer without having all classes unlocked, that is. And then you could use the whip. And the whip is actually really crazy good. Let's put it this way. Put this into perspective. The whip has about the same damage formula as the dagger. And the there's three great things about it actually. It has really good attack power for this point in the game. 26 is a lot. That's one thing. 2, it deals damage or full damage from the back row. That is the second really great thing about it. And 3, it has a chance to paralyze enemies unless they are immune to it. So it's really, really, really good. And have you done a solo Necromancer run before? Yes, we actually have completed one. The Necromancer without any... So here's the thing. I wanted to do a second Necromancer run with all abilities unlocked from the get-go, which would be more of a fun run. It's not going to be that big of a challenge overall, because Necromancer is insanely powerful with its abilities. But because of the nature of how Necromancer works, you're very, very restricted in what you can even do. Because you need to specifically kill certain enemies in order to unlock the spells and abilities. But yeah, we complete the Necromancer run without any abilities unlocked initially, just kind of, well, just job class and that's it. But I would want to do another one with the Necromancer, having everything unlocked sometime maybe. But that's more of a fun one. Welcome to you, Ragnarok. What are we doing today? Today we are tackling Final Fantasy V, the solo character challenge series, and we are back on, well, the ball with the solo character challenge run with the Beastmaster, which is what people voted for last time we cleared the last one, which was the Red Mage. So here we get to Warus, or Wall's Castle, or Wall's Town, and here we would get a new weapon, except we have a really crazy strong one with the whip. Actually, I might want to have other weapons anyways as a Beastmaster, thinking about it. Just because this allows us to vary our damage a little bit. So here's a training suit. It does have a good amount more defense, but actually more importantly, it gives us +1 strength. +1 strength does not sound like a whole lot, but it can be the difference of having to level up an entire one more level in order to be able to get across a certain damage threshold, so can be very useful. Also, let me actually check something real quick. I faintly remember the whip actually having a chance to miss, but I'm not entirely sure about that. Whip, there we go. Oh yeah, whip actually unfortunately has a 10% chance to miss. So, it's not the greatest really, but hey, could be worse. It's insane, yeah. A lot of the things I learned is just by having fun with the 4-job fiesta that is kind of like a little event every year for this game, where you are randomly assigned 4 jobs and then you have to play through the game with these 4 jobs. Obviously those are not solo character challenges, that's kind of a bit of a different beast, but that's kind of where I learned a lot about characters, a lot about bosses, and it's kind of fun to use that knowledge. Sometimes with certain solo characters and job classes, there's not a whole lot you can do in order to be clever about your approach and how you tackle enemies and bosses, so you just have to grind a lot. But for other characters, like the Beastmaster, you can actually do a lot of interesting things, let's put it that way. Alrighty, so... now we get back up there, but before we go up there, here we go, I'm going to briefly switch back to the planning phase. So, the next boss we're going to be facing is Galura. Galura has 1200 HP, it is only level 3, it has a speed of 31, so again, kind of just the awkward portion where we just don't have enough speed to, well, be faster than Galura or the boss in question here. Also, Galura, once it drops below 800 HP, it will start counterattacking twice every physical attack you do. However, we actually don't even technically have to capture anything in particular in order to be able to defeat Galura. This is because the whip has a chance to paralyze, which is like a... it's either 50-50 or a 1 in 3 chance to paralyze an enemy whenever the whip hits. And Galura is neither heavy, which means status effects that it is inflicted with, will last for, well, quite a long time, really. In fact, we can probably just paralyze it and then paralyze it again before it even gets a single turn, if we're lucky enough. But yeah, paralyzing is very, very powerful, also against bosses if they're not heavy. And Galura is one of the few bosses where the whip works just amazingly well. However, let's see whether we can find any interesting creatures to use. So the only immunities to status effects Galura has is Mini, as well as Sleep. So you cannot put Galura to sleep, you can also not Mini Galura. So let's see what else we can possibly do by capturing various enemies. So thanks to having our dragon friend here, we can in fact now go back to previous areas. So let's see, we have Blind. We can actually blind Galura, so it would miss 75% of its attacks. So that would be a way to go about it. Alternatively, we could poison it and just wait 16 ticks, because poison damage is passive and it does not trigger counterattacks. So we would be able to just circumnavigate its strength, so to speak. We could inflict instant death through the use of a Money Wizard from the Wind Shrine. That is a possibility too. The thing is, the Money Wizard is kind of low level, so the chance of hitting instant death might not be the greatest, but it will probably be reasonably high still. Then Bandersnatch inflicts death or paralyze with the blaster attack. It's like a 50-50 which one is going to do, so either would work, but instant death would just be more useful. Let's see, what else do we have? Petrification would be an instant death on enemies. Like, instant death as well as petrification are kind of two different ways of inflicting instant death on enemies. It's just you don't traditionally have access to both on a solo job character class, which, well, in this case we do. We can confuse Galura, but it's a one-time thing. As soon as it hits itself with a physical attack, it will break out of confusion. So it's very temporary usefulness. Then we can also slow Galura, which would make its regular attacks be a lot slower. However, the danger of Galura is more that it's counterattacks, so it's not that great. I would rather just blind it instead, if anything. Let's see, what else can we do? Blocks inflict darkness, petrification from the cockatrice. Alright, in this next section here, we have a Garchimazras, which actually inflict Condemn. So that's really interesting, because Condemn targets any enemies and is guaranteed to hit. It does not matter what level the enemy is. It is guaranteed to hit, and after 30 in-game seconds, I think they just straight up die. There's nothing that happens. As long as the enemy is not heavy, that is. That's kind of the one condition. And we will actually be able to use that in certain circumstances. What else? The catch, or the difficulty about Garchimazras is actually catching them. Right now we are straight up too weak to catch them, Unless we figure out some way of, like, catching another enemy to deal enough damage to the Garkimaster to catch them, which there might be a way, but I haven't figured out one yet. So then we can capture an Elf Toad which inflicts Toad on Galura, which Galura is one of the few bosses that is not immune to Toad. Toad basically means that you can no longer cast spells except for Toad as a spell, which turns Toads into normal cactus and normal cactus into Toads. Or frogs, I guess. And Galura has actually a special script where it will cast Toad on itself when it is a frog. So it's kind of useless against Galura, unfortunately. Then we have an Ice Elemental attack, cannot catch the Ricard Mage. And that's kind of all enemies we have access to. So I think the most interesting one would probably be trying to capture an enemy that inflicts Blind. If we don't use Blind, we could just instead use Instant Death with Petrification, or, well, literal Instant Death. Either one of these would be a pretty easy way to deal with him, actually. Trying to catch the evil base attack, or basement back attack enemy? Yeah, maybe later, actually. I'm not sure. It might actually have some use. Yeah, either way, I'm going to go ahead and try and capture one of those block enemies in order to blind it. But yeah, the evil back attack enemies, we would certainly have to capture something in order to, well, be able to use it in the end. I don't really know how well, or not well, this is going to work, honestly. We'll see. We'll probably just have to capture various enemies that have a strong attack and release it on those Garkimastras, just to see whether they deal enough damage. One of the problems with the Garkimastras is that if they get hit by anything, they might just berserk your entire party, and we might not actually be able to catch them because we are berserked. We're berserked, we cannot, well, do anything aside from having our character physically attack. So that would be pretty bad. But inflicting Condemn could be overall really, really good. Let me actually go through the list of bosses to see... Oh! Liquid Flame, as a matter of fact, would be one of the first bosses where we could already use the Condemn ability in order to instantly kill Liquid Flame. That would be quite the turn of events. Actually, do rock garters appear, or blocks appear outside here? They might not appear inside. I know they appear a bit later in the area, but I'm not sure whether they appear here. As well, that is. So yeah, Liquid Flame can be insta-killed. Iron Claw can be insta-killed. Biblos can be insta-killed. But we have a different one for that one already lined up. I may have to go further into the mountain to get a block. What else? Adam and Timmy can be insta-killed. It's not that big of a deal for the most part, but it's an interesting point. Chimera Brain can be insta-killed through that. Gilgamesh 1 can actually technically be insta-killed, but Galuf will not have enough HP to survive that realistically. Oh, by the way, one downside of the whip is that it has a 10% chance to miss, right? But simultaneously, the daggers actually reduce the enemy's evasion by half. So the whip doesn't just have its own inherent chance to miss, which is unpleasant, but daggers actually reduce enemies' evasion by half if they have an evasion. And these Gala cats do in fact have evasion, which means they will just dodge attacks randomly once in a while. But the chance for them to dodge is halved through daggers. Welcome to you, GF. I hope you have a nice day so far. Whip is aerial like bow and can't miss flying enemies, if I remember correctly. Wait, really? That's a new one to me, Dryzalizer. Very interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of that mechanic. But yeah, I would expect to miss the cockatrice, I guess. Huh. Learned something new. I've actually never really thought about aerial at all. Like, I know there's a certain advantage to using bows on enemies in Final Fantasy IV, but I never considered that to be anything in Final Fantasy V. Oh, come on, Ferris. It's a 10% chance to miss with these things. Hey. Right, let's see. Blocks. Where are they, my friends? There we are. Block have only 50 HP. So we need to get them to 6 HP or less, which means we need to deal 44 damage, but less than 50 in order to bring them low enough. And hey, Laugh Tactics, welcome. I hope you're doing well. Alrighty, let's see. We're of course not going to use the whip because it will one-shot them. Let's see how much damage the dagger does. 12 damage. They do have some physical defense. I mean, we can't just continue with this, I guess. Ow. That is 26. You know what, in this case, because we have enough range, it's going to knock out one of them so I don't take as much damage from them. I hope they have enough MP to cast... So, the gimmick about these guys is, they cast Flash. Flash is a blue magic spell that you can learn from an enemy if the blue mage gets hit by the corresponding spell, in this case Flash. The gimmick is that they don't have enough MP to cast Flash in order to blind you. So you actually have to give them an ether or an elixir in order for them to have enough MP to cast Flash so you can learn it yourself. It's kind of silly, but also kind of fun. 16. That's 42. 42 is 2 HP too little. Gonna punch here. Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay, let's hope that the knife actually does little enough damage. Which, fun fact, knife actually is the literal weakest weapon in the entire game. And it actually does 0 damage. Oh no. How much defense do these things have? Maybe with our variants we might actually be able to deal just enough damage. Let's see, knife has 7 attack power and blocks have 8 defense. So actually, in fact, with a 1 in 3 chance we can deal enough damage to these things. I think. Yeah, there it is. 2 damage. Nice. Very nice. Alright, we have a block. Now let's hope that it actually can cast Flash as we release it, because probably can. I don't think captured enemies have any concept of how much MP they have. This playthrough is a good test, but what seems to be the case, what I've read in the algorithms guide, whips are definitely aerial type, and as long as an enemy can't evade aerial, then it will always hit, but some flying enemies don't have that flag. Interesting. Can't evade aerial. Alrighty, Killer Bees can't evade aerial. Steel Bats, Moldwind, Galacats, Cockatrice, Ice Soldiers. Ice Soldiers? Zoo, Grass Turtles. Turtles? Okay. Silent Bees, Motor Traps, Loncanites, Fairy Orcs, Blood Slimes, Loplos. It's actually a lot more enemies, not necessarily just flying ones, that can't avoid aerial. That's intriguing, actually. Thank you, Dryzalizer. I did learn something today, to say the least. Sting Eagle, Worms, Magic Dragons, Motor Drive, Elm Gigas, Pyro Layer, Mukare, Shadow Dancer, Mercury Bat, Crystal Dragons, Sea Aves, Giant Birds, or Giant Butterflies as the PlayStation version calls it. I still love that name. It's not a butterfly. Oh dear. And Wing Raptor in the first form. Wing Raptor in second form. Archeo Aves actually can't evade whip attacks either. That's very interesting. No wonder I've never seen it miss. Any other boss? Abductor can't evade whips either. Merugene is also... Actually, the fourth form specifically of Merugene can't avoid aerial. Gargos, Bahamut. The final X-Stuff. Is this the... Yeah, this is the correct one. The 3 form of X-Stuff can't avoid aerials. Huh. Interesting. That's very interesting. Nice. Alrighty, welcome to Wolf's Tower. In here we are going to encounter a few new enemies that we could technically catch, but none of them were particularly interesting earlier. But as we encounter them in random encounters, I'm just going to mention what they would do if we were to catch and release them. So let's see if we ever, well, get into any encounters, I guess. Most actual flying enemies and some earth enemies are considered aerial. Yeah, that seems to be the case. Again, I did not even know that was a concept at all until now. That's very curious. Alrighty. Parasol. What is your ability, my friend? Oh, I think you cannot catch these guys, actually. They are not listed in the list, which means they cannot be captured, most likely. You also can't capture the Ricard mages that are in this section either. Which, by the way, Badasol is kind of like... It's kind of like French for no soul, which makes sense with how the enemy looks. Like Badasol. Which actually I have no idea whether soul is even French for soul, to be fair. This kind of bade means more or less no or none of something, in a sense. Also it's a short form. Hunter class catches monster in Octopath Traveler. Hey, that's really neat. Oh, Ricard mages. We cannot capture those guys. There's a bunch of enemies that you can't catch, unfortunately. Silver... Alright. Silver ring just gives you 1 more physical defense. It's not that big of a deal, but it's useful. We cannot equip the Silk Robe, I don't think, because Beastmaster can specifically only equip medium armor. No heavy armor or light armor. Alrighty, well, now we're trying to get a little bit lucky, but it's not going to be that terribly difficult. If I wanted to be the most efficient, I would have just once again captured something that would cast petrification on this poor guy, or even instant death for that matter. But I think it's going to be more interesting to try and use a block. Let's see. Flash. I missed! No, come on! Oh, I don't want to reset for it, because we should be easily able to defeat it anyways, because the whip can paralyze the poor Galura. So once again, Galura has 1200 HP, and once it drops below 800 HP, it will start counterattacking twice per turn. And because we are in the back row, we only take half the damage from those counterattacks. There's one, and there's a second one. And one of these counterattacks can be a rush attack. The rush attack is really dangerous, largely because it inflicts HP leak status, which is a lot of damage over a very short amount of time, for especially this portion of the game. Okay, paralyze please. Nice. I think it's a 50% chance to inflict paralyzation, or more specifically, to try and inflict paralyzation on an enemy. They can still resist it, even if it triggers. But yeah, the whip is a very powerful weapon against this poor guy. He does not even want to be here. Beastmaster versus Beast Boss, indeed. Would be nice. We can actually capture Galuras. Actually, no, we cannot capture Galuras around here. They are uncatchable. Goodbye, Galura. So yeah, the blind didn't work. We also really did not need it. I knew we did not need it. But this is kind of the part of the fun of the Beastmaster, to have a lot more freedom than other classes to use some creative strategies. Alrighty, while we are largely waiting on the cutscenes, let's look a little bit ahead on what we can capture for in the next section here. So, after Galura, we have the opportunity to capture an Eagle, which casts Rainbow Wind, which inflicts darkness, silence, and HP leak at the same time. And unlike a lot of spells that inflict multiple status effects at the same time, it will hit and it will inflict whatever status effect it can inflict. Other spells that can inflict multiple status effects at the same time will actually just not work if the enemy is immune against just one of them. This is not the case for this one. Then we have the Zoo, which are the big birds that use Breath Wing, which is a very powerful ability because it deals 25% of an enemy's maximum health and damage. So if you have a full party of 4 characters that all catch a Zoo, releasing 4 Breath Wings, that's 100% damage. And yes, it does work on bosses. The damage is capped to 9,999, so if a boss has more than 40,000 HP, you will not be able to effectively one-round them like that. But it is as powerful as it sounds, and we will be making use of that at some point. Not specifically from the Zoo, necessarily, because there's other enemies that also have the 25% of max HP, but we'll see, we'll see. Then, Wild Necks have just a strong attack for 483 damage, which is very respectable to say the least. And we have Grass Turtles for 805 damage, which is also very respectable. We have Silent Bees that are using Needle, again, inflicts darkness or silence at random, 50% chance for either, and then the enemies can still resist it. So, it's kind of a dice roll, I suppose. Also, goodbye, Sildra, thank you. Oh. Okay, afterwards we also have Mithril Dragons. Actually, we don't have access to those yet. It would cast Frost, which is an ice elemental attack that inflicts HP leak status. We have Crew Dust, which... Oh. It always sounds so sad. We have Crew Dust, which actually, like the blocks, inflict blind through Flash spell. Once again, Flash is pretty low accuracy overall, so it's not that great, but it can work. Also, Crew Dust is higher level than the blocks, so it will have a higher chance to work in the first place than with the blocks. Next, we would also have a Poltergeist, which they cast Drain, which drains about 190 HP. It's exactly what Magiza cast earlier. It's not that interesting, actually. Except for maybe healing factor during grinds. Well. Other than that, we have Defeaters, which cast Electrocute, which deals 84 lightning damage. It's kind of a really weak ability. Not terribly interesting, so... yeah. I'm actually going to go ahead and attempt to capture a Garkimasra from Wolf's Basement. I don't know whether it's going to work, but I do have a plan. For that, I will want to capture a Grass Turtle, I think it was. Yeah, Grass Turtle's strong attack deals 805 damage on an enemy with 0 defense, so it might just be enough, because Garkimasra has a lot of physical defense. We'll see. It's a plan, and I'm gonna try. Distant Tragic Honk. Yep. So I'm going to try and capture a Grass Turtle right now, or do I go grab better equipment first? We'll see. If I meet the grass turtle along the way, I will try to capture it. We already have a good weapon. Karnak is pretty much where you catch up with the damage of the weapon or power of the weapon. Let's put it this way. Ooh. Those eagles, once again, they cast Rainbow Wind, which is blind as well as HP leak, and they also like to inflict the aging status effect on you. Actually really like that hair when it's grey. Either way, the aging status effect is incredibly brutal, let's put it that way. Because it reduces all your stats, eventually to 1, gradually. Kind of like HP leak reduces your HP over time. Aging status reduces your stats, which means you effectively will deal, well, basically no damage in the end anymore, because, yeah, they're just being that mean. So you kind of lose all your multipliers and power, so to speak, for the most part. Alright, I'm going to actually go buy a Mithril hammer first. A Mithril sword. This is gonna be for Butts to have him knock himself out after whenever we get to rest. Because this first purchase is always going to be at a heavy discount. So we do want to take advantage of that and buy the most expensive part. Delicious Sildra. No, no eating Sildra, please. That's kinda mean. Let's see, what would be alternatives in case we cannot catch... Garky Maelstrom or Liquid Flame. Let's see... Liquid Flame is susceptible to... oh, instant death. So we could just capture something that casts instant death in order to try and defeat it. Liquid Flame is actually one of the very few bosses that is immune to slow and stop. Most bosses are not immune to slow or stop, so that is actually quite unusual. So what would we have for instant death? We would need to go back and capture Mani Wizard, which means it is relatively low level, so the chance to insta-kill would be relatively low, but in case I cannot capture a Garky Maelstrom enemy, this would be a solid alternative. See Sildra at the dinner table, yep. We seat Sildra at the dinner in the table indeed. No eating friends, please. Friends are not food. By the way, currently, for anybody who may not have heard that yesterday, I'm on the lookout for especially older PC games that are really interesting and intriguing in some way. So if you know any old DOS games, old Windows 95, Win 98, XP, PC games that you think are particularly interesting in some capacity, I'm kind of looking for like games that would be intriguing to play once in a while. To give you a frame of reference on kind of what type of game I'm looking for, currently on the list of games I have are Albion for the DOS, Planescape Torment, Arcanum of Steamworks and Magic's Obscura? Something like that. And I was considering putting Tyranny on the list. It's a much more recent game, but it did kind of intrigue me. But currently it's mostly like, what older gems that might be even a little bit unknown would be interesting. To be fair, Planescape Torment is very much not unknown, and is very well regarded among people who know the game and have played it. Ethra Chronicles and Exile 3. Never heard of these games, let me write them down so I can check them out later. Spy Fox. Pajama Sam. Spy Fox. Commander Keen games. I like them, but... let's put it this way, I like them. let's put it this way. If I did not already know Commander Keen, this is pretty much exactly part of what I'm looking for. Prince of Persia is also something I'm well aware of. Not currently what I'm looking for, but again, that is also part of what I'm looking for. It just happens I already know that one. Ultima series, I know enough about the Ultima series that I know that I would not enjoy playing them, although I do enjoy watching them once in a while. Ethra Chronicles, never heard of this. Exile 3, also never heard of this. Yes, DOS games or something like that. Lands of Lore. Yes, basically DOS games. The reason why I say DOS games, or especially older PC games, is actually because one of the intriguing things about older games to me personally is that good game design hasn't been invented yet at the time, which it's a bit of a weird thing to say, but I think you get the idea. Basically because people and developers had significantly less experience on what makes a good game. Sometimes they throw just really strange and completely weird stuff into their games that you would probably not find in any, well-regarded game anymore. Sometimes they just kind of go and make really strange stuff work and happen, and yeah, it's just strange sometimes. But that's kind of largely the appeal that I'm looking for in those games, because I feel like they could be very interesting just because maybe they had a really interesting idea or vision on how they want to play, or how they want to have something work. Maybe the execution might not be the best, but maybe the world they built could just be making up for maybe subpar gameplay, or gameplay that has just a really interesting aspect to it, but the execution may be flawed. That is still okay, so kind of stuff like that I'm looking for. Used to play Exile 2. Actually don't know that. Exile 2 was in Genesis, was it not? Nox and anything Westwood Studios. Yeah, Nox. I've already checked out Nox, and I've already played it a little bit, so it would definitely be something that I would want to look into more heavily. In this case, I already know, well, maybe not right now, Nox, but yeah. Just Jackrabbit I've played as a kid. Again, while that's a good game, not quite what I'm looking for now. For now, I say. It's definitely a really interesting one. Okay, let me buy a plumed hat for Ferris here, that is going to be more physical defense, as well as a silver armor for more physical defense. There we go. The whip is still the better weapon, but I bought a mithril dagger so we have something to deal more physical damage, but also halve it from the back row. Little Big Adventure. I think that's a more recent game, isn't it? Is that with the Yarn figures? Even not one? Let me actually catch up on chat real quick. The Spiderweb software. Oh, Little Big Planet. Okay, so it's a different one. So let me write it down. Gonna write that down to check out later. Thank you. Yeah, it doesn't have to be necessarily DOS, but when I say DOS, that's just kind of giving you an idea of the direction or the age of the game I'm looking for. Little Big Planet is the yarn, guys. Okay, so I don't actually know what Little Big Adventure is. Warcraft 1, I have to admit I'm not terribly interested in tactics games right now. Or well, strategy games? RTS I think. Actually, I've never really seen Warcraft 1, so I'm gonna put it on the list. Maybe that could be interesting. So, back to Final Fantasy V real quick. These wild knacks here, they have a strong attack when you catch them. It's not particularly strong. Well, the wild knacks are overall just not that strong, so yeah. However, they give a good amount of money, so might as well just defeat them for now. It's a good grinding spot, and we probably have to catch up a little bit on the levels, and those are kind of an excellent enemy to catch up on levels here. Biomenace, I have not heard that one. I know Jack Jazz Rabbit. However, I've only ever played the shareware version / demo of the game. I've never played the complete one. I like jumping around in it, but it's kind of like Commander Keen, where it's more of a nostalgia thing. But I'm not sure how much I'm looking for these right now. For reference, platformers generally have a lower chance of appearing on the list of games that are eventually set in a straw poll for people to vote on, but it is possible, I guess. So feel free to keep recommending such if you'd like to. Jack Jazz Rabbit. I'm actually right by a minute, so never heard of that one. So another one would be, oh, what was it called? Another cult classic of a game was... oh dear. It's a first-person thing, a pretty old one, where you are like on a space station and the AI has gone rogue and need to survive. It's like a... cult classic, I think. I forget what it's called, but that would also have been interesting, but at this point I've watched enough of it, it's like, it's neat. Not quite my thing yet. The horror game one? I don't think it was a horror game. Descent? No, it wasn't Descent. Oh yeah, there we go. Shock something. It was Shock something. Yes, Shock something. Whatever the... System Shock, there we go. Yes. It was System Shock. Yeah. I think it's on a space station, actually. But yeah, System Shock was a very strong contender for making it on the list. But I ultimately decided, maybe not. I've watched basically a good amount of gameplay to know that. System Shock was about the game you were about to suggest. Yeah, it's definitely... it was a very strong consideration, so this is also kind of what I'm looking for. Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. Well, I know that game, I have played it a bunch and I like it casually. But not quite what I'm looking for now. But if there's like a Final Fantasy Mystic Quest type game for PC DOS or like TurboGrafx or something like that, that would still be interesting. Were the Alone in the Dark games any good? I think people like them. I'm not a horror kind of guy myself, to be completely frank with you. I can stomach a little bit, but I'm a bit of a scaredy cat and don't like them usually. Some of them are pretty interesting though. Bioforge. If you say Resident Evil, it might just be a bit too far in the horror scenario, but it can still be interesting enough for me to look into it, so I'm gonna put it on the stuff I want to check out. Unrelated to old school PC games, but will you try out the Final Fantasy 1 Falls Boss Challenge? I don't currently plan to be honest. So I have not tried it. I like Final Fantasy 1 in the sense that it's interesting to see what it established and where basically the series come from. But playing it myself as a game, I'm not that interested in, to be honest, after my first playthrough. It's a bit horror but sci-fi, right. I have to admit, I'm more interested in fantasy, but I'm not against sci-fi, it's just fantasy piques my interest more. Like Albion for DOS is actually more of a space game, but it actually has a good chunk of fantasy mixed in there too, which makes it very intriguing. Hex? I don't know Hex. I assume you don't mean Hex, and that's probably different. If it's the first person thingy Hex, I think that's not quite what I'm looking for. Silver. Action RPG. Yeah, Hexen, I think, is the thing. Hexen is not what I'm looking for quite. It's in the correct direction, but... Actually, hang on. I think I just realized part of what I'm looking for is a bit of a more slow experience, where like it's more of an interesting world necessarily than the action part I don't really care much about. Silver is great, alrighty. Silver, action RPG. How old is Silver as an action RPG? Beyond Heretic. I think I've heard of that type, but I don't remember it. Beyond Heretic. Putting on the list to check out. Actually, it's a little like old Might and Magic games. Sounds interesting. To be fair, old Might and Magic games, as well as old Wizardry games, I think they are a bit too grid-based for my taste. But just as a heads up, I like Wizardry 6 in concept, but I've also played it a bunch. I guess I could go to Wizardry 7 sometime, but not yet. Hexen Beyond Heretic. Ah, see, that's how it is. Yeah. Hex, Heresy of the Wizard. That's interesting. Silver is 1999. Let me actually look up screenshots for that. Silver 1999. No, actually, I've never seen this one before. What system is Silver for? It does definitely look quite interesting. Okay. Back to Final Fantasy V here, real quick. So I will want to capture a grass turtle. Grass turtles have 250 HP, 1/8 of that is 31 HP remaining. So I need to deal 219 damage. So, okay. Silver is Windows and Dreamcast apparently. Ooh, Dreamcast. I have fond memories of playing Dreamcast games, although we mainly played Power Stone, Power Stone 2, Sonic Adventure, and that's pretty much it actually. This may be a little bit too old / cheap for what you're looking for, but my is obsessed with very obscure object. Tunnels and Trolls, Crusaders of Kazan. Well, that might actually be exactly what I'm looking for. If it's old and cheap, I might want to just learn about the mechanics and how to cheese / abuse the system beforehand. In fact, if you have like a guide or an introduction video or game FAQs thingy that I can look at if I'm more interested in the game, that would be great in general. Especially older games, sometimes you just need to know what is happening in order to have a reasonable chance. I'd have to say Wizardry 6 is very much in that area as well, where you may want to just learn about the mechanics before you even start the game. Especially older games are like, you are more or less expected to read the handbook before you even start, and even then that often doesn't help that much. You loved Wizardry 6? Nice. I have played Wizardry 6. So, I think actually Wizardry 6 was the first game of that sort that I'm kind of let me back off real quick. So, the reason why I'm kind of looking for old PC games is because I played Wizardry 6 originally here on stream. There's still highlights, by the way, if you'd like to watch the playthrough. Because it was a game I have played as a kid, but I've never gotten far, both because I wasn't allowed to play for that long at the time when it was released, like half an hour per day, and also it was at some point just uninstalled from the PC and gone, because we didn't never own Wizardry 6 ourselves. It was actually a friend of our family. And he kind of wanted to play it himself, so he wanted to have the booklet so he could, well, play the game himself. Either way, it was basically one of these games which I remembered seeing and just being one of these old mystery games that were just really fascinating to me, and just getting to explore it, even if it's, well, a bit of a... I suppose a bit of an interesting type of game, gameplay-wise. Let me put it this way. I don't think it holds up nowadays particularly well. It was still very fascinating to me to just come back there. And also, what I realized during that playthrough is that old PC games, you just don't know what to expect. If I'm honest, if I play a newer game, I often have a pretty clear idea of what is going to come, what to expect, and it's not really going to ever throw in much of a curveball at all. Like, even The Messenger, when I played this recently, it was neat, but not anything entirely unexpected. But these old PC games, they can throw stuff in there that is just, well, entirely unexpected. That's part of the fascination that I'm trying to explore with my question here. So, Tunnels and Trolls Crusaders of Kazan might actually fit exactly in there. Oh, on that note, if you have a game that might be only in German for old PC. I do know German, I can translate that on the fly, usually. So that would actually be within the realm of possibility. I know there is a bunch of, like, old Polish, maybe even French games that unfortunately wouldn't be able to play, but could be rather interesting anyways, I suppose. If you can get your hands on Wizardry 2, it might be something to give you a shot. I actually don't know much at all about Wizardry 2 or 3. I know more about Wizardry 1, well, mainly the NES version, and I know Wizardry 4, which is very, very infamous for its kind of quote-unquote difficulty. Wait, I think you play as Verdna in Wizardry 4, Diamond Punk. Unless I'm misremembering that one. GRG often has Wizardry 1 through 8, and the Knight we don't speak of on sale. 16 in a bundle. Right. Yeah. Right now, I don't feel like playing a Wizardry quite again, to be honest. But it definitely would be one of those strange, mystic games. By the way, Albion, the DOS game, is kind of my gold standard for what I'm looking for. It is an old game, it is like an old RPG even. And it has really interesting graphics and interesting world. So this is just kind of the gold standard of what I'm kind of looking for. It is Wizardry 4, okay, I remember correctly. But yeah, Wizardry 4 is super... I've been tempted to play that game before. But I would want to play through that game with basically a guide, since... that's a very... it's a very game. We don't speak of 9, sounds like Wizardry and Might and Magic have more common than I knew. 8. Final Fantasy 16 is coming out soon. How soon, actually? I may want to play this, depending on how it plays. I have to admit, Final Fantasy I'm more interested when they go back to the older style of Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Well, maybe not 6, actually. 6 might be too... It's mainly the setting that I'm looking for, let's put it this way. Final Fantasy 9 would be exactly what I'm looking for. Type of game anyways. I don't mind if it's turn-based or action. In talking about the setting in that respect. I've actually not seen anything of Final Fantasy 16. I'm kind of hoping that Baldur's Gate 3 gets released sometime. That's kind of what I'm looking forward to. Like, I know it's in early access. I don't like playing early access games. Because if I play a game, I want to be able to play it through without, well, anything in between, without having to wait. Because if I have to wait, like I'm forced to wait before the game is done, I usually lose interest. Not always, but usually. So it's just one of... Like Golden Sun. I played through the first one, but then I had to wait and I never played through the second one. Revenant. Oh, actually I think I've seen that one. Revenant would be an excellent suggestion. I happen to know about it already, and I've looked into it already. But yeah. It's an interesting one, certainly. This run looks like it's going to be very interesting with the Beastmaster, yeah. Welcome to Edge Crimson. We're just grinding up here a little bit on the wolves because getting here we were a little bit on the level, let me be honest. And I think we finally caught up on levels where I think I'm more comfortable with our current maximum HP. So we probably can just continue. Okay, so I have quite a list of games now to check out, so thank you everybody. We have Pyjamas Ham, Spy Fox, Ethra Chronicles, Exile 3 and 2, Lands of Lore, Nox, well I already have Nox, checked out. Westwood Studios games apparently, EBA 1, never heard of that one, Little Big Adventure 1 and 2, Warcraft 1 maybe, Biomenace, Bioforge, Hex, Heresy of the Wizard, Silver, an action RPG from 1999, Hexen, Beyond Heretic, and Tunnels and Trolls, Crusaders of Kazan. Alrighty, thank you for the list. Again, if you have any more suggestions, I'm always happy to hear about them. Doesn't Beastmaster get only one beast release per monster and thus per battle? Yes, Edge Crimson, that is exactly how that works. Which means we are very limited and have to be very strategic on how we use that catch and release mechanic. Ultima 4, yeah. Ultima 4... Actually, let me look into Ultima 4. Which version of Ultima 4, if I may ask, would you suggest? One of the Ultima games I remember that I've seen has actually pretty nice graphics, but the main problem about the game is that it has such a weird angle from like a perspective that it's just really hard for me to watch. Sort of like Worms, but real time. Right. By the way, if it's in German, I think I can still play the games in German and translate them on the fly. It doesn't have to be RPGs, it does not have to be turn-based. It can also just be like Lemmings would be probably another good example. If it's games in a similar vein to Lemmings, that would also be very interesting. Ultima 6 was your favorite game for a while back then. Yeah, I think Ultima 6 has quite a reputation, doesn't it? A bit like Lemmings. If you can remember it, Captain Duck, I would be very curious about it. Yes, still Albion-like games or Lemming-like games. Actually, Lemmings would work too. Okay, let's see. We want to capture the grass turtle. We need to deal... It has 250 HP. Actually, 2 times 120 would be pretty much perfect here. Let's see, don't deal too much damage, Ferris. Aww. Just slightly too much damage. Come on, Ferris. Did I ever play any King's Quest games? Yes. So here's the thing. point-and-click adventures have the caveat that they are interesting, but I would like to have somebody who either knows the game, or I would want to look up the moon logic puzzles beforehand. And I know that King's Quest games are among the games that use a good chunk of moon logic. For anybody who might not be familiar with the term moon logic, basically the concept of they have puzzles and such that are just really not they're just really out there, let's put it that way. 48, I think that's good. We can catch up now. I've played King's Quest 7, I think. Definitely interesting. Ooh. Andrew Wire, or Weir, feel free to correct me. Thank you for subscribing with Prime Gaming. Does that have a new name, or is that a different thing? Either way, thank you very much, Andrew Weir. I really appreciate that. Welcome to you. And well, I'm glad you enjoy your stay. Thank you very much. Finally changed to Prime Gaming. Interesting. Ultima 4 is the only one you've personally tried. It is tedious. Like, you're familiar with A through Z, 1 through 9 key controls in an interface, but the lack of diagonal movement and the very obscure nature made it just a drag to get anywhere in possible. Yeah. As mentioned before, the game can have certain flaws in its gameplay, and it may even be tedious, but if the world and maybe the story or just kind of the concept and the idea of the game is good enough, we can probably get past that without too much trouble. Abduction. Never heard of that one. Oh, that actually reminds me of another game. Gems of Darkness or something like that. I don't know whether that actually exists in English. I know I played it in German. But it's just a straight up puzzle game. But that might be interesting to revisit for me. It's very low on moon logic, definitely looking forward to Firmament coming out next year. Ultima 4 on the NES. Yeah, NES might be a bit... So here's the thing. I would like for the games to also look pretty decent, and NES... I would prefer Super Nintendo style graphics rather than NES. I might be a bit picky on that, but... that's just kind of to give you an idea of what may give a game better chances to make it on the list of stuff I would like to play. Yes, Arcanum is on the list already, actually, Damien Punk. Thank you. That's a very interesting one. Alrighty, let's get back to Final Fantasy V real quick here. So down here, we have a certain enemy that is known as Garki Mazra, and that enemy is kind of ridiculous to deal with, because it always back attacks you, unless you specifically have a thief in your party. It does a tremendous amount of damage, and let's see, fight. 555, that actually would work if... yeah, right. We get Berserked. So if we didn't get Berserked, this actually would work out in our favor. Unfortunately, because we get Berserked, we actually cannot capture this one. So we can deal enough damage to the Garki Mazra enemy, but because it just counterattack berserks us, we unfortunately cannot realistically actually capture it. So we kind of have to deal with this somehow differently. Which means I'm probably just going to go ahead and capture a monster that casts instant death or Liquid Flame. And Habu! Hello, thank you! Welcome everybody to Final Fantasy V, where we are attempting to complete Solo Character Challenge Run with just a single character and only a Beastmaster. And this is going to be a longer adventure over the course of multiple streams, but this is our Solo Character Challenge number 19. We have completed quite a few job classes already. But yeah, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for the hosting the raid, Habu. By the way, if anybody likes Stardew Valley, I can highly recommend you check out the Habu. Pretty awesome community over there, and also he's really good at Stardew Valley. You might think, well, there's not a whole lot you can get good at Stardew Valley, but trust me when I say that there's a bunch you can do in order to get good at that game. He got a new record today. Wow, congratulations. Like 2 seconds. That's still really good. Is there anybody else even close to your current time, if I may ask? 2-second PB. Nice. The next one is like 13 minutes behind. Yeah, that's kind of what I remember seeing last time I checked the leaderboards. Alrighty. Okay, so we are trying to capture one of these money wizards here in order to add them to, well, our catch and release thing. And I just realized I cannot capture a money wizard because we still have a turtle. Turtle is kind of going to destroy this poor little guy. The money wizard has 20 HP. 20. So that means we need to deal 18 damage, or 19 exactly, in order to be able to capture it. That might be rather difficult. Let's see. Yeah, that's a little bit more than 18 or 19. Why are all your friends dead? Because this is a solo character challenge run. I'm trying to beat the game with just one character. 5 and 6. Okay. This would be too much damage if I get 5 and 6 again. Let's see whether we get lower numbers too, maybe 3? 3 is 11, 14, 19. Oh, wait. Oh, 4, that's 20. Ah, that's 1 damage too much. But with just punching, we can actually deal low enough damage to possibly capture them. Friends? What are friends? Well, I'm kind of dragging 3 bodies with me and just place them in front of me every time I fight, and then I just run away. But apparently they never get eaten, so I guess that's a good thing. They're just sleeping, yep, just take a nap. Wait, 30 minutes behind, not 13. That's even more extreme. And we got paralyzed. Friends are the people you drag around even when they are KO'd. Right, we can go with that. Alrighty, let's see. Going to get rid of the snake first. Wonder whether the knife would be sufficient. But let's just use punches. Those should usually, or eventually work. No, not critically hit. That's 17 damage. We need 1 more damage. There's no way we can deal 1 damage. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give this guy a potion, so he heals back to full. That does not work. Oh, he cast ice. I did not even realize you could do that. That is 6 plus 5, it's 11. That's not a good range. I'm just gonna give him potions until we roll lower with our first set of attacks. So, for anybody who may have joined us, what I'm trying to do, so, my character is a Beastmaster. And Beastmasters can capture enemies and release them once. It's kind of like Pokemon, if basically each Pokemon you could only use once for 1 attack. That's 17. I think that's 17. Yeah, it has too much HP. Need to get a little bit luckier here. But each enemy has a unique ability. A lot of them just do a regular attack. A pretty strong one to be fair, but it's just still a regular attack. And this guy here, ooh, 6 well, too much. This guy here can cast Death, or well, an instant death spell. And while it's a really low level enemy, which is why we have so much trouble weakening it without killing it, it would actually be able to instantly kill the boss coming up that we are about to be facing. Unfortunately, this guy is not really cooperating. Well, or I'm not getting lucky enough with the damage roll. I need to deal 18 or 19 damage exactly, 20 will kill him. That's 11 damage again. Too much, Ferris. Let's just attack anyways. 6 and 4, that's 10. 21 damage, too much, Ferris. Alrighty, 3 money wizards to try here. That is 11 damage. We can deal less than that damage, so it is possible to... Wait, the lowest number I've seen is 3. There might be no 4. Oh, there's a 4. Oh, that is exactly 19 damage. That's pretty much what I'm looking for. Finally. Alrighty, capture this one. And goodbye. Thank you. I'm just going to abduct your friend. I'm going to release him later. Don't worry about it. I'm not gonna kill him. Probably. Well, I might not, but he's kinda weak, so he might die on the way back. Let's not think about that one. Oh, by the way, I think we get healed whenever I use this teleport. Which also means my float status is going to be gone. Right? Yeah, we get healed. Oh well. Either way, we do have ourselves a money wizard captured, so that's nice. I'm also going to give everybody a mithril dagger so they can knock themselves out in one hit. So this is going to remain a solo character challenge. Just trying to think whether there's anything else that I may want to do before going back over, but it's kind of largely everything. So the money wizard is probably like level 3 or 4. So, okay. The next boss we're going to be approaching is called Liquid Flame. Liquid Flame normally has 3000 HP and is not too terribly difficult to deal with overall. You need to get a little bit lucky sometimes, but overall you can deal with Liquid Flame reasonably well. However, if we can just kill it with one attack, that's obviously much better. Liquid Flame is level 19, and the money wizard is probably like level 3. Let's just go with 3. So, that means there's a level difference of 16. Doom has, I believe, a base attack hit rate of 80%, so 80% minus 16 in this case would be 64. Wait, no. Yes, 64% chance to hit with an instant death spell that I have. Wow, you guys didn't even knock him out? That's impressive. So yeah, normally... Wow, another back attack. That's unlucky, holy cow. Which, to be fair, they're just knocking out my allies and I don't mind. They need to go back to sleep anyways. So normally whenever you cast a spell that has a chance to hit, that usually inflicts a status effect or instant... Wow! For reference, a back attack is a 1 in 16 chance. That is the 3rd one in a row. Nice. Let's try this again. A status effect usually has a chance to hit, and the difference... What is going on? The difference in level is usually largely what decides whether the enemy gets afflicted by it or not. Some bosses and enemies also have magic evasion, which gets calculated into the chance to hit on top of it. But Liquid Flame has 0 magic evasion, so it should be, well, 64-ish% chance to instantly kill it. Lucky. Yeah, at some point you just get, you can say it's lucky rather than unlucky when you get this many back attacks in a row. Pretty impressive, actually. Alrighty, by the way, we did actually learn Control as an ability earlier. So Control is a Beastmaster ability that is incredibly powerful in its own right. You can control any enemy that is not a boss. So you can actually control most regular enemy to a large degree, which is kind of an insane range because there is some more or less like mini-boss type enemies that you can effectively control, and let's put it this way, we are going to put this to good use. But yeah, Control is an incredibly powerful ability because you just control the enemy instead of your own character. You lose control over the enemy if the enemy takes some regular physical attack as damage, one way or another. So you need to make sure that you don't attack physically one way or another. But because we only have one character, as long as the enemy has another ability that is not just a physical attack, that enemy will be able to just potentially knock itself out. That is absolutely what I'm going to be using. Of course, it does not really work on bosses. At least not on most bosses. There's some boss-like enemies where it does work. Okay. In that door there is a chest with a mithril gauntlet. That is an accessory that is classified as heavy, thus it can only be used by characters that can equip heavy armor. We only get medium armor on a Beastmaster here. And all the mithril gauntlets do is just add a bunch of physical defense, which would be nice, but it's not that important. Here we find another elixir. I think this is the first one we pick up that is just kind of a natural occurring elixir in one of the chests, I suppose. Do you remember Beastmaster being helpful when you tried a low level run? Oh yeah, absolutely. Beastmaster can do a lot of work, especially on low level. What's the percent to control enemy? I believe it's a flat 40% chance. Unless you have the... I forget what the name of the helmet is, but there's a helmet in World 2 you can pick up that increases your chance to a flat 80% to control enemies. I might be wrong on that number. I know that is the number for trying to steal from enemies, but I think it's also for controlling them. Oh yeah, the Coronet / Hypno Helm is the helmet, which is something that usually you just pick up in order to sell for the most part, because it's way too heavy to be of much use most of the time. But the Beastmaster will have use for the Hypno Helm. That chest over there contains a Thief's Gloves, which is an accessory that doubles your chance of being able to steal as a thief. It increases it from a flat 40% chance to steal to a flat 80% chance to steal successfully. So it's really good for a thief. I'm not a thief, so I could go and grab it in order to sell the thing for money, but that's kind of a bit of a big detour, so I'm just gonna skip out on it. So I'm gonna go out of my way, however, to pick up another treasure chest. This one here is going to contain a green beret, which is pretty decent physical defense, although it actually has less magic defense than the plume tat we have, also less magic evasion, but it also has +1 strength and +1 agility, which can be the difference between needing one more level, or well, not needing one more level in order to reach an additional agility strength level threshold to deal more damage. Which means we actually have baseline 41 strength right now. If we equip the training suit it would be 42, but I'm just gonna go with 41. We also now have 29 agility, which is still not enough to outspeed most enemies. You think it is up to 75%. Ooh, so it's not as good. In the staircase to the right, you can go and get a boomerang type weapon, which can only be equipped by thieves as well as ninjas. They deal full damage from the back row and are pretty good overall. The main downside of the boomerang is that it does not have a 100% chance to hit. But despite that, it's a pretty decent weapon. Also, I just realized I actually need to plan ahead for what I want to do after. Well, I suppose we could just do physical attacks for the next boss, but that would be not as interesting, potentially. Let me actually just briefly look up on what we can capture here in this next section after the boss, because this will be a time section, so I kind of want to look this up beforehand. So, after Liquid Flame... Oh, can you not capture the enemies during the escape sequence? They're not listed here, which usually means that you cannot capture them. Oh. I did not consider that part. You've never tried, right? Yeah, if it's not on this list, it usually means they cannot be captured. I'm gonna briefly check. I can just try capturing them by like full HP, just to see, but I think it means you cannot capture them. You see that Gygus is supposed to do Arrow 3 on the release. Maybe they are in a different place, Gygus. There's a Elm Gygus. Oh. Well, we'll see. Well, we're just going to try. Alrighty, welcome to Liquid Flame. Liquid Flame will change its form every time it takes damage into one of the other, well, 3 total forms. It's never going to change into the form it's already in. Okay, let's see how this is going to go. So we have about, I don't know, 60% chance to instantly kill it. Let's see how this is going to go. Whoop. Oh. And we reset. Because it's just much more efficient to try this again rather than trying to do the fight the normal way. If I were to do the fight the normal way, which actually would be a reasonable consideration, I may want to just capture something for after this fight. Oh. You really hate doing things fast, you can go all the way back to the Goblin, I suppose. The Goblin is a pretty solid choice at this point, still for doing damage, straight up anyways. But it's actually going to be outclassed after we clear this area here by the Sand Bear. Can't find anything. Yeah, that's actually a big trouble I personally have as well, Captain Duck. There's some games that I have seen on, like, when I was in IT school, there were some really strange games that I had never seen before that looked pretty interesting. Looked a little bit like Lemmings, but you were searching for gold, kind of strange controls. Either way, because a lot of these games are just German only, it's really difficult to find any like that. Like weird numpad controls. I actually have no idea how the game controlled, honestly. But numpad is a very common one. But yeah, I've actually looked through like 800 pages of abandonware, and I've only sometimes found some of the games. Actually, the Game of Robot is a German one that I think is pretty interesting, but it's actually not that abandonware. Hey, dude worked. Nice, second try. The Game of Robot is, however, not abandonware, so you can still technically buy it. This website is still available. The guy still updates it, but it's way too expensive for what it is. Like, I would buy the entire game bundle for like $5, but he is like asking for 20 or $25. Way too expensive for my taste. Get doomed. Indeed. Tip of my joystick. Oh, actually, I remember that subreddit. I've posted there once, but unfortunately nobody could help me at the time. And since then, I actually have found the game I was looking for. It was named Clone. Actually, I should probably put Clone on that list as well. Clone is an interesting puzzle game. Hello, welcome. You had no idea until super recently that you could beat Liquid Flame, leave the steam shooting tile and go back for a new monster capture before going into the castle. You know, I actually did not consider that at all. Like, it didn't even occur to me until you, well, just said it. I did not realize you could do that. I mean, of course you can. It's just... I didn't even think about that at all. To be fair, we probably don't need it. Yeah. You just leveled up, hey, congratulations. I did not consider that at all. Oops. Let's see, another old PC game that I played as a kid, it was actually only the shareware version, was where you were actually mouse controlling like a sphere, a ball or something like that. And you needed to like touch the two correct blocks that had the corresponding symbols in them, and it was kind of difficult to navigate to. What was it called? I actually have the game somewhere still. It's pretty interesting. The castle has a garden dagger and elf cape. And yes, we definitely get the guardian dagger and elf cape, absolutely. Especially the elf cape. We can't technically go without guardian dagger, but it's so incredibly useful for especially later in the game, where I'm gonna go for a more passive approach, like when you're healing, when fighting against X-Death at the end of World 2, you might as well just go ahead and equip the guardian dagger at the time, in order to have some more defense. No reason not to in my book. Welcome to Yuki. Okay, I hope you're doing well. Yeah, I guess it's a bit later than I usually plan, but I actually decided to take a nap. And, well... now I'm still awake. Because I did not sleep well, unfortunately, at all. So, yeah. What would be the main challenge for this challenge? It's actually a good question, because the Beastmaster has a lot of answers for a lot of enemies. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Let me actually see whether I can capture this guy. Weakness of mail, so yeah, I think you can capture sorcerers. You don't even remember what the Beastmaster does. The Beastmaster mainly does two things. One is controlling enemies, and the other one is capturing enemies in order to use them against the other enemies themselves. That's kind of the short version. And a lot of enemies have very powerful abilities and attacks they can do when you basically capture and release them. It is very Pokemon style, except that you can only use your captured monster once, which is a very limiting factor, and you have to potentially plan ahead quite a bit in order to make full use of it. Yeah, you don't keep them forever. Would be interesting, but also, if you kept them forever, it would be rather overpowered. Fireball, thank you. Thank you so much for 5 months of support. Welcome back. Well, I'm glad you enjoy your stay. All the challenges are where you first started watching the channel. Nice. Welcome back. What are the criteria for capture? You need to reduce the enemy below 1/8 of their HP. Round it down in order to be able to capture the monsters. Imagine if Beastmaster could just use any monster they ever captured for an MP cost. That would be very crazy. Also very interesting. And yes, later you can get a special accessory where it's only half HP that you need to worry about. Which is much nicer too. Hey, let's see. Okay. It does not tell me that I can't control the Gigas enemy, but let's see. That's a lot of damage with Arrow 2. There we go. Now we're controlling the Gigas enemy, which means the Gigas is still going to, well, act on its own turn, but hit itself. So unfortunately, Arrow 2 is going to heal the Gigas enemy, so control does not really do anything for us here. Oh yeah. Let's see. 850 divided by 800 needs to be just under 100. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of damage there. I use the high potion here, I guess. So that's like 500-ish damage. Is that 500? More like 400. That is about 600 damage. If he survives the next attack, I'm going to try and capture him. Wait. Oh, wait. Oh, that doesn't make sense. Did he just... Oh, he does not have enough MP for Arrow 2. Actually, I guess controlling him in order to run him out of magic for Arrow 2 might be a viable strategy here. Alrighty, we just acquired the Elf Cape. The Elf Cape gives us 1 magic power, 1 agility, and a 1 in 3 chance to just straight up dodge enemy attacks, which is incredibly powerful in its own right, so we definitely want to take good advantage of that overall. Oops. So these chests here also contain enemies that are, well, guarding stuff. Let me actually check something real quick. How much HP does a sorcerer have? Sorcerer. 350 divided by 8 is 43.75 HP remaining. So we need to deal 306 damage. Which unfortunately with my next attack I am going to kill this guy. Oh well, it's fine. We can try to just weaken him rather than kill him once we get the Guardian Dagger instead. But right now it's a little bit dangerous to try and do so while a lot of other enemies are still alive in the round. We do get elixirs from these random chests here, so that is quite helpful. Also this guy here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just have him cast Arrow 2 on himself. Once again, it doesn't do anything to him, but it's going to run him out of magic. Which is going to be a bit safer than me trying to fight him straight up. He should be probably out of magic. We'll see. 145. He actually counterattacks his own attack on himself. That's very interesting. That is about 350-ish damage. There's about 550. He's going to die the next attack. I'm actually going to go ahead and heal. Potion. Then with one more attack, he should survive the next attack. Unless I get a really high damage roll. Actually, it was just sufficient still. Then I'm gonna try and capture him. Oh, you can capture them. They're just not listed on the document. Okay, that's interesting. I figured the document would be complete, but apparently not quite. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this guy, but I guess I can cast Hero 2 now. Wait, is it Arrow 3? Okay, let's try to control this guy. Ooh, it didn't work. Arrow 3 is really strong. I might actually be a little bit slow. Maybe I shouldn't have taken the other chest encounters. There we go, we got him. Now we need to not get confused or controlled by the sorcerer. So I'm gonna cast Arrow 2 on the sorcerer here. I'll try to anyways. Ooh. Okay, the Geiger still did the correct thing. The wolf thankfully hits me out of confusion. And Toad actually missed, so that's also very good for us. Okay, sorcerer down. If you're confused, we by the way cannot use the elf cape in order to dodge attacks. You know what, I should probably just straight up attack. He can counter-attack with arrow, and I will probably just have to use an elixir if he uses arrow 2 on me. But I can also paralyze him instead. How strong is arrow 3 anyways? Alrighty, Nagigas is down, and the wolf... When the wolves are without having anybody else in the fight anymore, they will run away. Yeah, we got the Guardian Dagger. The Guardian Dagger is incredibly powerful. It is a weapon that has way more attack power than any other weapon you have at this point. It's a dagger, which actually is one, if not the best weapon class in the entire game. Because it scales a little bit off of agility, but the main factor really is that it has a 1 in 4 chance to block enemy attacks, so it's really crazy good on that end too. So, this battle here, the Sergeant is going to transform into Iron Claw when he is alone. So, in theory, what I want to do is I want to kill him before he transforms into Iron Claw. Which means I'm actually never going to defeat the little wolf here. I'm just going to instead only hit the Sergeant. Which apparently can also paralyze him, that makes it rather convenient. Wonder whether I could capture this guy. Probably not. But yeah, the Sergeant transforms into Iron Claw, which is kind of dangerous because it likes to cast Death Claw on you, which puts you both into paralyzation, so you can't do anything anymore, as well as puts you into critical HP. So it's Carl Boss multiplied by 2 in a sense. So it's really, really mean on what this guy can do, but well, if you just defeat him before you defeat the last wolf, he's never going to transform. Which, by the way, if you play the Game Boy Advance version and you want to have a full bestiary, you have to actually let him transform, otherwise you don't get the entry. Just as a heads up. Can you not fight Iron Claw in the boss rush? I actually have no idea, maybe? So buy the English version this time over the Japanese version. Largely because I don't speak Japanese. And while I can find my way through the game and the menus, it is just much more comfortable if I can actually read what I'm doing, and without having to search for the item every time in the menu, etc. The reason why I play Japanese is because I want to do the solo Berserker on a legitimate cartridge, rather than just using the SD2 SNES to play the fan translation. So I was playing the Berserker on a regular old cartridge from Japan, actually. Actually kind of curious how much damage the Hero 3 is going to do. It has really high base attack power. I wonder whether there's any boss or enemy that is going to be vulnerable to wind coming up. I don't think there are. Might only be one boss weak to wind in the first place. That is the Carpet Wizard. Huh. I don't even have wind listed as an element. That's why. Oh, Arceo Avis is weak against wind in the first form, but we will have something else for Arceo Avis. Yes, the use of the Japanese version was a special case. Again. Also, it is probably more pleasant for viewers who might not be as familiar with the game as well, if they can actually read the text and kind of have an idea of what's going on, without me kind of narrating every single step. There's the zoo. Bonk. And we can paralyze it. The zoo has a 1 in 16 chance to drop us an elixir, so... well, kind of worthwhile fighting. You checked, and Iron Claw is not part of the boss rush, so you're right. Oh, interesting. Okay. Oh yeah, Necrophobia is weak to every element, that's true. Good point. So yeah, Necrophobia, the first form of Arceo Avis, and the Carpet Wizard are weak to air. But that's a bunch, I suppose. Oh, that's true, Carbuncle's second form. I forgot about that one too, actually. It's kind of fascinating to learn that apparently the whip never misses against aerial type enemies, well, most of the time. So the zoo, we never miss with the whip despite the 10% chance to miss. I never had any idea about this. Oh, by the way, to illustrate what the enemies do, the turtle deals strong attack damage for about 805 damage. A zoo will unleash an attack that hits all enemies for 25% of their maximum HP, which is very powerful in its own right overall. So, yeah. Oh, you can insta-kill it with a Bioblade? Nice. To be fair, you can just use Break Blade, I suppose, but that's kind of fancy. I didn't realize that Bioblade insta-kills if the enemy is weak to it. I guess it makes sense. Alrighty, okay, so I actually kind of really want to prepare on what to do and have strategies prepared for the next sections, because I feel like I can barely keep up with chat and simultaneously play the game and plan ahead on what to do. So I think I'm going to just kind of say this is it for now and today for this solo character challenge. We're going to continue this within the, well, next set of streams and, well, bring this to completion, so to speak. We only have a bunch of solo character jobs left at this point to complete. And yeah. Bit of a shorter stream, but I hope you still enjoyed it. So everybody, thank you so much for watching, for listening and for lurking. I hope you enjoyed this day and, well, hopefully until next time, take care and have a good night.